Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto become fire daimyo after chunin exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by NarutoNega and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Don't own Naruto. It's been only 3 weeks in as genin and I watched as my team, or better yet my teammates, leave our squad. Man, did it suck being the only genin left in a squad that was supposed to stick together for years, but there was a saving grace. And that was my sensei deciding to take me on as an official apprentice. Sure, there were probably more suitable students he could have taken on, but I am glad he had chosen me. All it meant was that I wasn't going back to the academy after graduating, and all my effort that had been pushed into team exercises hadn't been for a waste at the end of the day. Looking back to it, I couldn't help but release a small sigh of sadness as I watched my 2 teammates Kijo and Akusi leave the team because it was too hard or this is lame. I thought ninjas were supposed to do cool things, their words not mine, but when I had seen that they decided to throw in the towel, I was sure that I was going to either be put on the reserves or sent back to the academy to wait another year before gaining another team. However, it seemed that I hadn't given my sensei enough credit as he decided to take me on as an apprentice when my teammates gave up. It was for the best if I could say so myself. Under my teacher's guidance, I had managed to learn many things, including some things that only chunin and some jonin had gotten to learn. An example for this is elemental manipulation. Something that even my sensei said he wasn't all too sure if I was ready or enough for it or not. I had managed to get him to agree to train me when I had trained 3 days straight to prove that I was worth the effort. Wasn't the brightest idea as I spent 2 days recovering a week's worth of fatigue and muscle damage. I sure didn't get off lightly when my sensei appeared in my hospital room and berated me for overdoing it. But I did get to learn elemental manipulation, or still am, I guess. I only have mastered the basic step for only 2 of my elements. That's right. Only 2 mastered. Yep, you guessed it, I have 1 more affinity, and it just became a massive pain in my ass as I tried days upon days to complete the exercise. Sadly, I had to slow down on completing the elemental manipulation part when my sensei told me about the upcoming chunin exams soon to be taking place in a few months. And it's for that reason why I am standing in front of the village leader, along with my sensei, trying to prove why I am worthy enough to attend it, even if I have to go in it alone. The Yandame Hokage could only look towards the genin in front of him with a narrowed stare. It had come to him as a surprise when at the end of the graduation exams that there was 4 teams that had successfully passed their genin exams and had begun missions, together under the guidance of a jonin sensei. Now, the reason as to why he was surprised that there was 4 teams that had graduated was because one of the teams had been a squad full of civilian students, who usually never get the chance to become shinobi/genins as they simply lack the skills necessary enough to graduate and pass the genin exam set by the jonin instructors. However, when he heard Team SIXS pass, the Hokage couldn't help but give a happy smile knowing that he gained a new squad he could rely on until about 3 weeks into being accepted as a genin team before 2 of the members decided that the ninja life wasn't what they were expecting and hoping for. And because of that, they left only a solo member along with the sensei, who had decided to take the lone genin to become his apprentice in a similar way to that of Jiraiya had done to him when his team had also given up after a few weeks. Now that allowed him to synthesize slightly with the genin in front of him. But even with that in mind, he wasn't sure if the child would be able to take on the chunin exams without a team to support him in his endeavor of become a chunin. However, he did take into the consideration of the fact that his sensei was a previously trusted umbu who decided to retire a few months prior to the academy graduation, which was a blessing in disguise as it would seem as the jonin had something else to do instead of the regular missions he had been getting. Releasing a sigh, the Yandame Hokage couldn't help but take a glance towards the jonin instructor who had short brown hair with black almond-shaped eyes. The jonin wasn't well known to those outside of Konoha, something that he was glad for, but he was well known within the umbu force as he had a near-perfect mission success record during his time within umbu. And that is what made the jonin a very good one. He wasn't known to those outside of umbu and is only thought of as a simple jonin. Tenzo, murmured Minato as he looked towards the jonin with a hard stare, only nodding towards in respect slightly as he saw the man not even flinch when he had his gaze onto him before turning his attention to the genin towards him. The genin stood at a good 5 feet tall with shoulder-length spiky black hair and crimson eyes with a similar appearance to that of his own when he was a child, something that amused him as he would get an off comment from someone saying, "Did you have another child, Hokage-sama? Or that young man could only be related to you." Now, while he knows that it was bad for the kid to have so many people think he was related to him, he couldn't help but imagine that if the child had shorter blonde hair and blue eyes, he would be a mirror image of him as when he was a child. That single little thought, an image, only made the 4th smile a bit as the teen stood and faced him without any hint of fear showing within his eyes as his own blue eyes connected with his crimson ones. That also reminded him of himself at the young age of 13 as he too had similar eyes in regards to his passion and determination. Yes, the child in front of him was like a mirror image of him with only a few minor differences. However, getting back to the subject in hand, Minato couldn't help but look at the black spiky-haired teen as he stood with a makeshift Konoha chunin attire. or well, what appeared to be one, as he also had a similar appearance to that of his sensei, that being a flat jacket over a long-sleeved shirt and pants, which were then neatly tucked into his shinobi sandals. He also seemed to have a skill with both kunai and shurikens, as he had 2 pouches on both sides of his back pockets along with his left and right thighs. But the main difference about the attire was mainly the coloring, that being black instead of a navy blue color for the shirt and pants, and green for the flat jacket. However, the entire set of clothing the genin had on was all black, including his pouches and sandals and headband that sat upon his forehead. Looking down towards the mission Count Naruto, the genin's name, had done in collaboration with his sensei. Minato couldn't help but be impressed. Sure, there wasn't an A ranks like his daughter's team had done, but it was impressive that he had accomplished more missions than his daughter's team. D ranks, 32 C ranks, 13 B ranks, 2 A ranks, 0 S ranks, 0. I have to say, Yamato, your genin apprentice is extremely capable with a mission stat sheet like this one. However, there is the issue of not being in a team that concerns me, as the chunin exams are either a life or death situation. And without a team, there is a higher chance of young Naruto here dying within the forest. Are you sure you would like entering Naruto here into the chunin exams in the coming months? I am sure by the time the exams appear that he will be ready, but being ready and safe are 2 different things, spoke Minato as he quickly read through all the mission files that had been placed within the folder of Naruto's mission stat sheet. Something that amazed him as a genin was so well organized wasn't heard of daily. Looking towards his sensei, Naruto couldn't help but send a determined nod towards his teacher before focusing his view back onto the 4th Hokage. Hokage-sama. Please allow myself to prove that I am worth of attempting the chunin exams. Sure, I am a solo genin, but if my memory recalls from the academy, it had also mentioned that you 2 have done the chunin exams by yourself due to your team also giving up. So from one who has also lost his teammates, and has been taken under the wing of a respectable jonin, please allow me to compete, replied Naruto, as he lowered his head slightly in a bow as he waited for the Hokage's judgment. Yamato, seeing this, decided to also interject for his student's sake. Hokage-sama, I also agree with my student. Within this past month or so, my student has put his entire being into everything he has done, whether it be D-rank missions or training. It is the only reason why he has been able to accomplish so much in the short time he has been a genin, and I think it would be an excellent experience for him to compete in the chunin exams when they appear in a few months. Please give it some thought, Hokage-sama, voiced out Yamato as he stood by his genin apprentice with a supporting hand on his shoulder, much to the hidden appreciation of Naruto as he awaited for the 4th's judgment. Looking over the file Naruto presented him once more, the blonde Hokage gave a small nod before turning his attention back towards Yamato, and Naruto with a small nod. Very well. If Naruto here is willing, he is able to sign for the chunin exams once they appear. With that, you are both dismissed, replied Minato as he handed the file back towards the spiky-haired teen, who gave a small smile and nod. But before both he and Yamato could leave the room, the Hokage had once more opened his mouth. Naruto, if I may ask, how have you found the time to complete all those missions? Asked Minato, his curiosity getting the better of him as he looked towards the back of the black-haired genin. Turning around, Naruto gave the Hokage a somewhat blank look before scratching his black spiky hair. Well, I have all the time in the world, as I am an orphan, and because of that, I am able to take missions and do training exercises regularly, something which I truly enjoy doing. It also helps me pay the rent of my accommodation, replied Naruto, gaining a nod from the Hokage as he relaxed in his chair slightly before waving Naruto and Yamato out. Watching as the 2 left through the front door, Minato couldn't help but look down towards the file that had Naruto's statistics on his table with a small grin. He was a ninja that he would keep his eye on well, along with his daughters and their team anyway. Training Ground 6, just like Team 7 Training Ground, just in different spot. Appearing in a Shenshin with Naruto in tow, Yamato couldn't help but give his black-haired, red-eyed genin a small smile as he was given the green sign to allow his genin to enter the chunin exams that would appear in the next few months. Placing a hand on top of the genin's head, Yamato gave Naruto a small smile before walking a few meters away from Naruto before falling into a basic taijutsu stance. Naruto himself following suit with a grin on his face as he awaited for the signal. And with a small smirk from Yamato, Naruto dashed forward as he attempted to place his sensei off balance with a quick strike. However, even he knew that it was pointless when it came to his jonin sensei. But that didn't stop him from attempting to. Jumping slightly into the air, Naruto sent a knee strike to the jonin's head as he attempted to put his sensei off balance. However, the jonin quickly brought his arms up to defend against the attack, giving Naruto the opportunity as he used Yamato's arms to spin his body with his knee, allowing him to place his body behind his jonin and send a cracking left kick towards the head. However, the jonin once more dodged the attack by ducking into a crouch before twisting on the floor and sending a kick towards the still mid-air genin, only making Naruto widen his eyes in shock as he attempted to counterattack. Sadly, he couldn't react in time, thus sending him back into the air where he was left wide open once more, allowing his jonin instructor to jump up and grab the back of his flat jacket before being thrown down towards the hard earth. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto quickly went through a series of hand signs before disappearing, only leaving a log in his falling place. Lucky enough for him, he managed to land onto one of the trees around the clearing, giving him some breathing room as he looked towards his sensei, who was now simply standing there in the clearing, waiting for him to attack. Narrowing his eyes at the lack of jutsu he had in his disposal, Naruto began to channel chakra into his wrists where he had his weapon of choice ready and waiting. Flicking his left wrist, Naruto watched as a ninja wire flew out towards Yamato, who quickly jumped away from the wire, much to Naruto's irritation as he jumped out from the treetops he had been hiding in, reason being he knew that his sensei found his position once the wire had left his wrist. Retracting the wire he had shot out, Naruto quickly threw out his right hand in a slicing motion, sending the wire from his sleeve along the clearing in a wide arch, only watching in disappointment as his captain jumped into the air before going through a few hand signs himself. Water release, water bowl! Shouted Yamato as he threw his right hand forward, sending a continuous jet stream of water hurling towards Naruto, who simply widened his eyes at the jutsu. Muttering a quick shit, Naruto threw his left hand out, once more sending his retracted wire towards a tree before quickly infusing the metal wire with chakra, making the wire that had wrapped around the three connect with the main wire before using it to quickly move out of the way, much to his relief until he watched Yamato simply aim his hand towards Naruto's new position. Seeing this, Naruto quickly used his free right hand to pull a kunai out of his pouch before using his left wire to swing between the trees surrounding the clearing, mildly noticing the wire cutting his hand slightly as he swung into a position where he could effectively disrupt his sensei. It didn't seem to work as his sensei created wood clones who then also joined in on the jet stream, only making more streams of water fly towards him at a ridiculous pace. Swinging behind a tree, Naruto quickly retracted his wrist wire before taking cover behind the hard oak tree which stood against 5 separate waves of jet speeding water. Tilting his head slightly to that he could see for any possibility of moving, Naruto could only shut his eyes in slight irritation as one of the wood clones noticed his head stick out slightly, and redirected its hand towards where his head had appeared. However, it had given Naruto an idea as he watched the water splash along the trees and floor. Releasing a sigh to calm himself, Naruto pulled out a smoke bomb from his pouch before slamming it down on the branch, engulfing the area in a thick black smoke. It seemed to be in vain, however, as all the Yamatos did was stand there and continue their jutsu while now aiming around the original tree, restricting him from moving without getting damaged in the process. And that made the hidden black-haired genin grin as he began to change his chakra into that of Reuniting as he felt the slight tingle of the torrents of water pushing against the wire. It wasn't a few seconds later did Naruto release all the pent-up Reuniting chakra into the wires attached to his wrist, which then traveled along the water jets his sensei had created along with his clones. Sure, he may only have the first stage of lightning release completed, along with his water release nature, but by all logic shown in the academy, lightning can conduct through water, and because of that, even if his sensei used an earth release jutsu to counter, the earth jutsu would be weaker to the lightning type attack as wind has the advantage over lightning. Too bad his sense didn't have his wind affinity, which he hasn't sadly even mastered the first stage, but still it was nice to have 3 affinities, even if you couldn't use them to the highest point. Watching as 2 of the water jets disappear, Naruto quickly threw his right wrist out, only to widen his eyes as he noticed his body wrapped around in tree branches as he was formulating his plan. Gritting his teeth, Naruto attempted to build up Reuniting chakra to help loosen himself from the grip. However, the odd metal feeling of a kunai pointed towards his neck made him release a sigh of disappointment as he looked up slightly to see his sensei smiling at him from the tree branch that was slightly above his head. Naruto couldn't help but look down once more before admitting defeat, prompting his sensei to mutter a quick Yamato. 47 Naruto. The one was when he had created a destructive jutsu named Sexy Jutsu, which he then used in collaboration with his wires to take down Yamato. But now that he thought about it, all he really had to do was the Sexy Jutsu and he would win. Damn. Getting free from the tree, Naruto couldn't help but cross his arms and give a disappointed sigh as he looked towards the somewhat happy sensei as he looked down towards his student. Okay Naruto. We will continue our training tomorrow. Make sure to be up and early so that we can hopefully finish your wind manipulation training and progress in both your chakra, control and taijutsu. We may even have time to work on strategies and simulations using my wood release clones. We could maybe also finish implementing your wires into your taijutsu training. Now that I think about it, either way, be ready for tomorrow morning. Understood? Asked Yamato, getting a nod from Naruto before disappearing with a shunshin with tomorrow's lesson in mind. Blinking slightly at the smoke, Naruto could only shake his head before hopping off the tree branch he was on and landing in a crouch against the training ground floor. Looking up towards the sky, the black-haired teen couldn't help but grin as he saw that he had a few hours before dark, and seeing as how there was a lake there, he could always get a head start on his chakra-controlled training. Let's go, muttered Naruto as he stared towards the lake with his crimson-colored eyes. Hospital. Now Naruto, do you know exactly why you are in the hospital? Asked Yamato as he sat beside his student's bed with a blank expression, only getting a small chuckle from the occupant on the small hospital bed as he gave his sensei a grin. It definitely not the fact that I spent the entire night trying to master water walking and then drowning after my body collapsed on itself after mastering water walking while also doing physical training. It was definitely something I ate that did this, remarked Naruto with a chuckle, only wincing slightly as his sensei gave him a smack on the forehead, much to his current displeasure. Yamato gave his student a stern look before releasing a sigh as he sank into the chair he was currently sitting on before sending his eyes back towards his student. Naruto, this is serious. While I am amazed at your determination to master everything and anything as fast as possible, it's not healthy. This isn't even the first time I had to explain this to you. Remember the whole shocking yourself to unconsciousness when you first attempted to send right-un chakra through your wires? Asked Yamato, getting a nod from Naruto as his mind drifted off towards an image of him looking like he had been struck by a thunderbolt before being cremated. Yeah, even he knew that he was lucky to not be permanently damaged from that. Shaking his head slightly as he snapped his fingers, once more gaining the attention of his genin, Yamato continued his lecture. Look, what I'm trying to say is this. You have an amazing amount of potential that could be wasted should you not survive one of your so-called extracurricular training sessions, and that's not a good thing, Naruto. Sure, you are improving by leaps and bounds, but pushing yourself to those lengths are that of suicide. Even Guy and Lee wouldn't attempt to do your type of training of literally waiting till you collapse. So what I'm getting at is that I want you to calm yourself a bit and slow down. Can you do that for me? Asked Yamato with a hand now being placed on top of Naruto's head, only getting a cheeky grin from Naruto as he lifted a single hand from under the covers of his bed before pointing towards himself. Sorry, but no can do, Yamato-sensei. Like I said before, I will constantly prove my worth to everyone, especially you, since you kept my shinobi career alive by taking me as an apprentice. Besides, how can I hope to beat you if I don't train as hard as I do? Asked Naruto rhetorically, only getting a small grin from Yamato as he stood up and clapped his hands together, forming mokotan vines to wrap around Naruto's entire bed, ensnaring the black-haired teen within the confines of his bed. Fine then. Until you agree to slow down a small bit, I will not allow you to leave the confines of your bed, which would be such a shame since Hokage-sama had a C-rank mission to hand out. Oh, but I'm sure you're fine with some D ranks instead. Wouldn't you, Naruto? Asked Yamato in an evil tone, only getting a snarl from Naruto as he quickly attempted to wriggle out of the confines of his bed. Much to Yamato's amusement, that was until Naruto managed to wriggle his hands to a point that he could perform the replacement technique and escape. Seeing that, Yamato couldn't help but release a sigh before disappearing within a shunshin, as he already knew exactly where his student was going. Streets of Konoha. Gritting his teeth slightly as Naruto attempted to zip up his black variant of the chunin jacket, Naruto began to sprint towards the Hokage tower as he wanted to quickly accept the supposed C-rank mission that the Hokage had held. Jumping over a small tree, Naruto sent a small amount of chakra into his legs as he jumped on top of the rooftops as he bounded across building after building towards the Hokage administration office that was just behind the academy. Using a chakra-enhanced push, Naruto managed to lift himself high enough to completely overshoot the academy, much to the currently sparring academy students down below him, as he then did a small flip before landing in a crunch at the front of the building. Opening the door, Naruto then began to quickly walk towards the administration office where he already knew Yamato was waiting for him. Moving just in front of the door, Naruto could only clench his right fist for a moment before relaxing and unclenching it. Changing his somewhat tired expression to that of a calm one, Naruto moved his hand to open the door, only to twitch slightly as he heard a loud obnoxious voice coming down the hall. Not wanting to see the creature that could make such a noise, Naruto opened the door to find his sensei, along with the Hokage, sitting there with a file between the two of them. Noticing the entrance, Yamato waved Naruto over, much to the black-haired child's relief, as he was sure his sensei would have made sure it would be impossible for him to have the C-rank mission. Walking over towards the Hokage table, Naruto sent a small nod of respect towards the fourth before turning his head towards his sensei with a small wave. Hey sensei. So, we going on a C-rank mission? Asked Naruto curiously, only getting an evil grin from Yamato as he looked towards the Hokage, who simply nodded his head in agreement. Turning his head back towards his student, Yamato couldn't help but enjoy the slight shiver that he saw trail down Naruto's spine for a moment before speaking. Sorry, Naruto. But I won't be going on the C-rank I told you about. However, you will be going with, began Yamato, only widening his grin as a loud obnoxious shout appeared from outside the door, much to the slow widening of Naruto's eyes as the seconds drifted by before the door slammed wide open, showing a boy with a very feral appearance, with a white puppy sitting on his head. Yeah. About time the strongest team got a C-rank mission. Heh. I bet the other genin will be so shocked that we got a C-rank before them, shouted the feral boy, only getting a twitching look from Naruto as he sat there patiently for the dude to calm down. Not a moment later did the rest of the feral boy's team appear. The oldest of the group, who he instantly assumed was the jonin, had long black untamed hair that reached her upper back along with shining red eyes like that of his own, making him grin slightly as anyone with the same color eyes as him must be awesome. However, unlike his own, her eyes also appeared to have another ring within them. Looking at the jonin's face, Naruto could easily make out the red lipstick and purple eyeshadow from a mile away before trailing his eyes down towards her outfit, which to be honest, looked more like a rose-themed dress than any shinobi clothing. However, to each of their own choice, he guessed. Trailing his eyes along, Naruto's next victim appeared to be the calm one of the team as the teen stood at a sound 5 foot 2 inches, something that irritated him slightly as he was now not the tallest 12-year-old he knew. The teen had dark, bushy brown hair along with dark round glasses that covered his eyes along with a sea green jacket with a high upturned collar, concealing the bottom part of his mouth up towards just under the nose. Turning his head slightly, Naruto came upon the sight of the last member who seemed to be the more. Kiba! Calm down so we can get our mission already. Team 7 could have already gotten their own C-rank mission by now and could be leading. Sure, it would be great being the best team, but the team is comprised of the 2 daughters of the Hokage and Sasuke Uchiha. So, if we want to beat Mito-chan and Nari-chan, spoke the apparently fiery Hyuga as she crossed her arms under her somewhat large, for their age anyway, chest before turning her head towards him, giving a clear view of her white pupil-less eye before raising a delicate eyebrow towards him. Raising his own eyebrow towards the team, Naruto could only count of the short Heim-like haircut along with the thin binge jacket that was left open, showing the mesh undershirt underneath along with a pair of pale blue shin-length pants with a small pair of shinobi sandals to finish off the look. Turning his head slightly, Naruto only took one look of the group before turning his head entirely towards his sensei. I'm being put on a team with them for the C rank, aren't I, Yamato-sensei? Asked Naruto, only getting a widened grin from the man, identifying that was exactly what was going to happen. However, it seemed the dog boy jumped in to save the day. Oh joy! What? It can't be true, Kurenai-sensei. Why do we have to work together with this nobody? He probably has been a genin for like 10 years or something, shouted the feral boy, only getting a twitch from Naruto and a snicker from both the Hokage and Yamato as they sent a glance towards Naruto once more, watching as the black-haired genin began to slowly narrow his eyes at the Inuzuka shinobi with a small amount of killing intent being directed at him. However, much to the shock of Yamato, Kurenai seemed to actually agree, not the whole being genin for over 10 years part, but not being able to keep up with her team part. Turning her head slightly towards the Hokage, Kurenai bowed her head slightly in respect before voicing out her own opinion within the matter, something that made Naruto narrow his eyes in slight anger as he listened on. Hokage-sama, if I may. I believe that handing me what appears to be regular genin with no tracking skills or physical skills, from his somewhat thin figure, I believe that he would not be able to keep up with my team within the mission, and as such, I believe that my team by itself should be able to handle the C-rank mission presented, spoke Kurenai as she looked towards the Hokage directly with her ruby-red eyes, absent-mindedly noticing the brown-haired jonin and his black-haired genin staring at her with an irritated and bored look, something that was creeping her out slightly. When Minato heard Kurenai open her mouth, he instantly knew what she was going to talk about. The way she stood and the way she acted when looking towards Naruto gave away her intent. Grinning slightly behind his hands, Minato simply picked a file off the desk before throwing it towards Kurenai, who caught the offending file midair before opening its contents, and when she did she could only turn her head slightly towards the black-haired genin who was now looking at her with an evil toothy grin. Turning her head back around, Kurenai could only look at the Hokage with a completely serious expression before holding the file out towards the Hokage. Hokage-sama, there is no possible way that a genin, even with a Jonin sensei, could accomplish this much missions within the time allocated since graduation. There is just no way that the genin could have completed over 32 D ranks, 13 C ranks, and over 2 B ranks. How a genin got assigned B rank missions is utterly ridiculous. It just isn't possible, replied Kurenai as she once more looked at the file before handing it back, absent-mindedly noticing the grin on the Hokage's face as he placed the information file away before turning towards Kurenai's group of shocked genin with a small smile. Something everyone seemed to notice as they began to stare towards the currently frozen as they slowly began to draw the information in, much to the obvious amusement of both Yamato and Naruto, and the less obvious amusement from Minato the fourth Hokage. However, it wasn't long before Team 8 had calmed down apart from the Inuzuka as he once more opened his mouth. Pointing towards Naruto, Kiba could only narrow his eyes as he turned his head towards the Hokage. Hokage! This dude is obviously a spy. If I hadn't gotten that much C rank and B rank missions no one could have. Not even your Dao. Whatever Kiba was going to say next was cut off when he suddenly found himself down on the floor with his mouth forcefully shut with Naruto holding him down, with a small glare. Inuzuka-san. Not giving Hokage-sama the respect he deserves is an offense and could be taken as such. Should you not apologize for your actions, I will be forced to take the official procedure that is required at these moments unless Hokage-sama says so, spoke Naruto with a clear tone as he continued to force Kiba down with some effort, showing as the Inuzuka was giving it his all to stand up. However, Kiba's savior came from the Hokage himself as he simply chuckled slightly before waving Naruto off, getting a nod from the genin. The Hokage then presented Kurenai the file containing the mission, much to her shock as she thought that both the black-haired boy along with her student had ruined the chance to gain their first C-rank mission as a team. Looking at the mission and having a small frown appear, Kurenai turned towards her team before reading out the instructions. Pack for 2 days. We will be clearing out a bandit camp a couple of miles away from the village, and I want you all prepared. Understand? Asked Kurenai, getting a small nod from her team before the Inuzuka upped and left, much to her anger, as she hadn't stated when they were supposed to leave or meet up. Turning her head toward Shino and Hinata, who was slightly preoccupied with the black-haired genin that was standing beside the other jonin, Kurenai coughed into her hand before stating the last bit of information towards her team. Hinata, Shino. Meet at the gate front entrance in 2 hours. One of you please go tell Kiba that as well. Dismissed. Finished Kurenai, watching as her 2 genin nodded before moving away. They are really unorganized, you know, spoke the black-haired genin as he crossed his arms. Turning her head slightly, Kurenai narrowed her own set of red eyes before questioning what he had meant, much to Naruto's small grin. Reaching into his back pouch, Naruto pulled a small scroll out before holding it towards Kurenai, who simply stared at the genin for a few moments before grabbing the scroll. Sending a small bit of chakra into the thing, Kurenai watched with wide eyes as several more scrolls appeared, each having its own separate titles. Looking through each scroll title, Kurenai couldn't help but be slightly impressed as she picked up one of the scrolls that had the kanji for water before sending her chakra into the seal, which then released the contents of what appeared to be over 50 bottles of water along with a spare set of 10. Much to her confusion, as she didn't see the need of all the empty canisters, resealing the canisters within the scroll. Kurenai then collected the original 7 scrolls before placing them on the original scroll before sealing the lot up. Handing the scroll back towards the now smug black-haired genin, Kurenai turned her head towards the Hokage before giving a nod. Thank you, Hokage-sama, for allowing my team a C-rank mission. While I would prefer that the mission wasn't a bandit elimination, I still thank you for it. Expect teammate back by the end of the 2 days. Spoke Kurenai before turning herself around, only to feel someone grabbing her wrist. Tightening her head slightly, she saw Naruto standing there with his hand gripped around her wrist slightly before giving a small smile. I'll see you at the front entrance, Captain. Spoke Naruto before giving a small wave as he left, much to the slight amusement noticeable on Yamato's face. However, before Kurenai could turn her head towards the Hokage to speak, the Hokage beat her to the punch. Yes, Naruto is indeed going to join your team for the mission. And before you think that he won't be able to do much, his mission statistics aren't tampered with. He has legitimately completed all those missions successfully as a 1-month genin. Now, shouldn't you be getting ready? Asked Minato, getting a small nod from Kurenai before she disappeared in a poof of smoke. Turning his head slightly to the jonin beside him, Minato couldn't help but release a small sigh of relief. Thank you for doing this, Yamato. It will help both my daughters harness the power of Kyuubi with you around to monitor it. Sorry for taking you away from your apprentice, muttered Minato, only getting a small wave from Yamato as he walked towards the front door of the office. It's fine, Hokage-sama. If I have to give a day up to help you out, it is all fine. This also just gives my apprentice Naruto more time to train himself. Hopefully he doesn't use the extra day to heal within the hospital, remarked Yamato half-heartedly as he walked away from the office. Giving a small nod, Minato then turned his attention down towards the stacks of paperwork on his desk with a small sigh. Front entrance, 1 hour and 50 minutes later. They sure do take their time, don't they? It's not like within the 2 hours of being ready the bandits haven't already moved their location a bit, or maybe even killed a passing-by couple or merchant. The idiots! People's lives are in danger because there could be a chance for them to be caught in the crossfire. Sure, if the bandits are in a secluded area, the chance of that happening is low, but still there is a chance, murmured Naruto as he continued his push-ups as he waited for his team to arrive. It had been well over an hour and a bit since he had appeared from his walk from the Hokage office towards the front entrance. He had originally thought that his current captain would have been joking and really meant to tell the team that they leave in 30 minutes, something that he himself would think would be too long, as it would only take him a minute to reach the front entrance, as he always kept his supplies on him at all times. Sadly, it seemed that his fellow genin actually required the 2 hours to prepare for the mission, which, he knew, was a waste of time because ninjas were supposed to be quick and efficient. Not long and irritating. The irritating part was only directed towards the Inuzuka if anyone wanted to know. Releasing a small sigh, Naruto got out of his push-up position before taking a seat besides the gate office, absent-mindedly giving the 2 gate guards a small wave as he had seen them quite a lot as he went for his C-rank and B-rank missions, something that amazed them as they had never recalled a genin doing that many missions. Internally, Naruto wanted to say, well, if you actually commit to being a ninja then you can do anything. However, even he knew that was harsh, so he just politely thanked the 2 before going on his way. Usually, stopping his waving, Naruto simply began to rest his head against the entrance wall before mentally shouting in agony as he could have spent the previous hour actually training in other subjects rather than his push-ups that he wasted his time on. Moving his right hand into his pockets and pulling out a pair of fingerless black gloves, Naruto then began to slip the gloves on before making sure that they were as snug and natural as possible. Dragging the ends of the clothes up to the max, Naruto then began to go through hand seals to make sure his hand dexterity hadn't taken a hit at the added protection he had bought for when he used his wires. Thankfully, it seemed that the gloves didn't hamper his hands in any way. Apart from the odd stretch of the glove, everything fit, well, like a glove. Sensei! Why is the bastard here? I thought Hokage-sama was just joking about the guy joining us, shouted Kiba as he, along with his team, came upon the sight of Naruto simply sitting down on the ground with a bored expression sitting upon his face. Turning his head towards the direction of the sound, Naruto could only raise a single eyebrow. Are we going yet? 10 minutes, 10 fucking minutes. That's the amount of time it took for him to feel the urge to kill a member of the Inuzuka clan. The stupid mutt hadn't shut his mouth through the entire 10 minutes of travel the squad had completed. Now, what exactly was Naruto worked up about? I mean, surely Kiba wasn't talking about anything revolving a civilian-bred ninja like him, right? Hey Dobe! Where's your bag, Yabaka? Did you accidentally drop it in the bin along with your trash? Oh right, never mind, you must live in the trash. After all, you are just a Dobe. Unlike me, an alpha male who just reeks of awesomeness. Right, Hinata? Asked Kiba as he and the rest of Team 8 jumped across branch after branch in a diamond formation with Naruto taking the lead, much to Kiba's earlier protests. Hearing her name being mentioned, The Hyuga heiress could only release an irritated sigh. Turning her head slightly towards the right where Kiba was, Hinata could only send the alpha a small glare. Kiba-san, focus on the mission. This is our first C rank and I don't want to get distracted and lose the opportunity of completing the mission set by our Hokage, replied Hinata as she activated her Byakugan to send the point across. However, even she knew the Inuzuka wouldn't shut up as he only turned his attention towards the back of Naruto's head as he jabbed a thumb towards his chest. See dope? Even Hinata-chan admits I'm an alpha of the highest caliber. See, let me see her Byakugan as proof, shouted the teen, while also getting a supportive bark from the Niken laying on top of Kiba's brown shaggy hair. Naruto simply held his twitching to a minimum as he continued to move towards the designated area, which by his calculations would only be 3 minutes away from his current position. Looking around his surroundings, Naruto couldn't help but narrow his eyes as he gazed along the treetops and forest floors as he and Team 8 jumped from branch to branch. It wasn't a moment later did Naruto suddenly stop on the next branch with his hand held out to stop. However, much to his internal irritation, Team 8 simply chose to ignore him and continue jumping with Kurenai's order, as she decided to actually contribute to the mission. Watching as his team continued on forwards, Naruto sent a look towards one of the trees ahead of him with a weird marking stabbed into the base of the tree. Narrowing his eyes once more, Naruto pulled a small notebook out before copying the marking before focusing on the marking that he drew down within his small notebook. Gazing at the sketch, Naruto couldn't help but stare into the book before turning his attention back towards the tree. However, the little nagging at the back of his head began to ring louder as he shifted his head to and from his sketch to the tree before finally releasing a sigh. But no matter what, Naruto could only narrow his eyes further as he stared towards the marking image that was in his now little notebook that he kept around to document on different things, something that his sensei Yamato thought was a good idea when he talked to him about it. Something's wrong here, this isn't a natural mark, could it be Fuinjutsu? No, I haven't gotten enough information yet, but this does cause for concern. If there is a Fuinjutsu marking around the area that a supposed bandit camp is, we might not be dealing with only bandits. And from the look of the marking, it seems that there is a high chance of a ninja being involved who is either really good at Fuinjutsu or Kenjutsu, as the markings seem to be cut into the oak tree base. Damn it, Kurenai. A fucking jonin, but obviously not very observant. I have to get this news to my team, muttered Naruto with a slight sigh as he flipped his notebook closed before pushing himself forwards onto the branch ahead of him as he then began to jump across the treetops via tree branches. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto began to send his view in every direction as he continued to jump across the tree branches. His sixth sense, or as he liked to call it, his shinobi sense, just burned within the back of his skull as he spotted a few more similar markings along the base of trees near the forest floor. It was 2 minutes later did Naruto know for a fact that the markings were not just for show, as Team 8 hadn't returned from completing the bandit clearing mission, which normally only took 2 or so minutes, as when compared to shinobi, bandits, well, the regular kind, were like 5-year-olds who couldn't hit all that hard. Landing on another branch, Naruto snapped his eyes towards the next tree branch he was about to jump onto before sending his eyes towards the base of the branch where, much to his surprise, was another marking, but what worried him was the small backpack that was left on the branch. And that backpack happened to be Hinata's from what he remembered. Looking back towards the marking once more, Naruto moved his hands into a cross sign before supplying his chakra into the technique. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, mumbled Naruto as he summoned a single shadow clone besides him with a small pant. He knew for a fact that his Kage Bunshin's chakra supply was nothing over a mid-level genin. But that would be enough for him. Turning his head slightly towards the clone, Naruto nodded his head, getting a small nod from his clone as he jumped onto the next branch, where it then widened its eyes as a wave of chakra injected itself into the clone before paralyzing him, causing the clone to fall towards the ground with a small thud, a thud which dispelled the clone, returning all the memories the clone had went through. It was safe to say that Naruto had no intention of going through the marked trees, however, that caused him to widen his eyes in shock as an image flashed through his head. An image that could only make Naruto grit his teeth as he thought back to the possibilities to where his team had disappeared to. And the first that popped up in his head was the simple image of his team walking past the now identified seal and falling victim towards its effects. This is not a C-rank mission. Fuinjutsu is one of the hardest to grasp ninja techniques. And there is no possible way simple bandits could have this kind of knowledge. They defiantly have a missing ninja among them. This isn't good. What's worse is that my team is now probably taken hostage. Yeah, this mission is well above C rank and I don't have the leisure of returning to Konoha and asking for backup. Fucking hell. Why didn't the jonin pick up the unusual markings? But then again, she was only recently promoted, and for that reason I think the fourth was on drugs by giving her 3 important and highly respectable clan heirs. Okay, no time to get back up. My best bet would be to find out where my team are held and free them before retreating and calling for backup, but that brings the original problem back of the bandits attacking regular civilians. Damn it, thought Naruto with a small glare, as he looked towards the markings once more before reviewing what he got from his clone. So, from what I get from the seal, it's a scentless poison that is inhaled, which then paralyzes the victim till they drop. It also directs itself into the user's lungs to restrict breathing and making the user tire quicker, along with making them sluggish before complete paralysis takes place. The poison is also injected by a forceful wave of chakra which makes dodging it all but impossible. Okay, guess I'm going to need to create another clone to check the ground and see if it's safe. muttered Naruto as he raised his hands once more to create another Kage Bunshin, much to his slight irritation as he felt his chakra once again drop to 50% before releasing a sigh. Giving a nod, Naruto watched as his clone jumped down towards the forest floor, only to get caught in a trap. However, before it expelled itself, it saw the original give a short shake of his head, allowing the clone to hold its form before it suddenly began to hear the voices of what appeared to be a group of men. If the tone and depth of the voice said anything, however, as instructed, Naruto watched as the clone got dragged off with a small army of men, much to the clone's irritation as it sent a final look towards its creator. Shaking his head slightly with a small grin at how his clone reacted, Naruto dropped down towards the ground before following the slight dragging marks that appeared across the floor as he watched the large group disappear over the forest's horizon. Keeping an eye out for more fuinjutsu markings that he could come across either by accident or on purpose, Naruto began to pursue the group with constant awareness, as he followed a fair distance behind as he once more caught sight of the men who had captured his clone. It didn't take long, however, for Naruto to come upon the site of what appeared to be the bandit camp as he once again took to hiding within the treetops as he then sent his gaze down towards the large amount of hostages that were all grouped together in the center in what appeared to be a fuinjutsu barrier. How exactly did the bandits capture so many people without the shinobi of Konoha noticing? He had no clue. But he did know that this wasn't a regular C-rank mission anymore. No, this was a B-rank hostage elimination mission, and that wasn't taking into the account of the possible ninjas within the area who had helped the bandits. Shaking his head, Naruto returned his focus to the bandit camp itself, and narrowed his eyes as he captured the two likely shinobis, due to both their garb and slashed headbands, but there was also the chance of there being more of them in the area. Mentally capturing the two within his mind, Naruto then began to count down the list of enemies before mentally wanting to cry as he finished his total count, that being from what he could currently see over 23 bandits with 2 shinobi, most likely chunin rank from both appearance and body structure. Shutting his eyes slightly, Naruto moved his head towards the center of the camp, his head going through multiple scenarios of ways to help those who were captured. Most thoughts ended with him probably dying at the hands of the bandit/shinobi group. Looking towards those captured, who he noticed were awake but bound by both the wrists and ankles, Naruto easily found his squad within the edge of the barrier, Fuin attempting in vain to destroy the barrier that kept them caged. However, instead of the barrier causing them damage, it only seemed to resist the pounding of fists from those within. However, that also came upon the attention of Naruto as he looked towards the slightly transparent white barrier with a narrowed stare. I can't hear those within talking, so the barrier also makes it impossible for those outside of the technique to hear what is being spoken of within. It also seems to nullify the chakra of the user, as he was sure Kurenai would have probably used a small genjutsu to make a bandit help them escape from the barrier. Okay, from what I can see, if I were to smudge the outer fuinjutsu strokes, the barrier should collapse on itself and allow those captured to escape. However, I don't know if those caught within the technique will be able to use their chakra instantly. If they can, it means that I have 3 other genin and 1 jonin joining in on the fight, something that will make our chances of living all the higher. But how should I approach this? Thought Naruto to himself as he shut his eyes in concentration as he went through scenarios of possible outcomes. Okay, my options here are limited, with the time frame of being able to initiate the plan is also incredibly slim. But not only that, I also have the disadvantage of not knowing exactly what I'm going up against. Something that could possibly kill either me or a hostage later on. Shit, okay, first off, the dumbest of the possible options being a frontal assault. Perks, surprise advantage. Negatives, I will be spotted and be instantly attacked once the few precious seconds of surprise wears off. Joy option 2, however, is just to stealth it, and somehow free both the hostages and attack the enemy simultaneously. Something that even I know is impossible without being able to use the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu on a somewhat large scale. The most I could manage would be about 2, which can be actually useful, and the clones would only have about 2 minutes with the chakra they store, which would be 1/4 of my entire chakra amount each, which also brought my own levels down to 1/2 my actual amount. Well, seems like option 3 works, as the other 2 aren't the best for the situation, thought Naruto with a small grin as he raised his hands up once more, summoning over 10 Kage Bunshin who had literally 10 seconds before they dispelled themselves due to lack of chakra supply. Giving a quick nod, the clones all jumped into the air, making the enemy down below widen their eyes in shock as they watched the clones all throw multiple explosive kunai down towards the bandit camp, something that made everyone widen their eyes in shock for a moment before a cold chill began to run up each and every spine that was outside of the barrier. It was too bad that they didn't focus more on the kunai, as the moment they landed they began to glow. And anything glowing in the shinobi universe isn't normally a good thing. Looking down towards the clearing once more, Naruto raised his hands up into a release seal before releasing a small breath of air. Kai! Shouted Naruto as he pumped chakra into his numerous clones, as they also reflected the release hand signs before sending a small bit of their chakra into the kunai throne, causing the clearing to light up in a bright shine before a massive explosion rang through the clearing. Looking from his perch, Naruto narrowed his mind at the smoke for a moment before clapping his hands together. Wind release, gale palm! Shouted Naruto as a strong blast of air pushed all the smoke away from the clearing, revealing a bloody sight of multiple dead bandits, and chunks of body parts all scattered around the area. Turning his attention towards the center of the clearing, Naruto couldn't help but release a small sigh as he gave the clone that had been captured a thumbs up as he spotted him, along with the rest of Team 8, sending a good amount of chakra into the now damaged Fuinjutsu barrier, which had managed to take on the onslaught of the multiple explosion kunai barrage. The clone, seeing his boss nod once more, gave his own nod before disappearing in a small poof of smoke before allowing the once strong and transparent barrier crumble into pieces around their bodies, much to the captured civilians' amazement. Shaking his head slightly, Naruto began to scout the area as he walked around the clearing, something that instantly drew the attention of those who had been held captive not even a few moments ago. However, before anyone could mutter a word, it seemed the sensei of Team 8 opened her mouth. Walking toward black-haired child, Kurenai couldn't help but look slightly disgusted as she watched the child walk around the bloodied clearing without a speck of emotion showing upon his face, something that worried her slightly as a genin by all rights should not be blankly staring around the clearing like a curious child. But just as she was going to speak, Naruto suddenly turned towards her and gave a mighty shove, shocking all there present. But before anyone could comment, a small earth spear shot out of the ground and stabbed right through his right shoulder, causing Naruto to give a mighty scream of pain as the earth spear went straight through his shoulder. Kurenai could only widen her eyes at this, along with her genin as they quickly began to form a diamond position around the now injured Naruto. The civilians, however, seemed to take this as their chance of leaving, thus leaving the now once slightly rowdy clearing dead silent as Team 8 began to search their surroundings with a serious expression. Turning her head slightly, Kurenai took a small look towards Hinata before nodding her head, which in turn gained a separate nod from the Hyuga heiress. "Byakugan!" shouted Hinata as she activated her eyes and began to look for the concealed enemy Nin, something that she easily found now hiding slightly within the trees. "Kurenai-sensei! There's two of them within the trees directly ahead of you," shouted Hinata, her focus slowly drifting towards the one they were protecting as she watched him snap the earth spear that was created from the ground in half before ripping it out of his now damaged shoulder. Giving a small glare directly in front of her, Kurenai quickly sped through some hand signs before lifting her right hand towards her mouth in a perfect O shape. "Fire release, great fireball!" shouted Kurenai as she blew a fireball towards the trees ahead of her, watching as the two previously hidden Nin jumped from both sides of the tree with a psychotic grin upon their faces. However, just as one of Nin were about to open their mouths, a sudden scream rang throughout the clearing. Turning his head, the ninja who was just about to begin talking could only widen his eyes in pure shock as he watched a black wire wrapped around his partner's neck before the now captured Nin began to scream in pain as he spazzed upon the tree branch he sat. However, because of the small distraction, the man didn't see the black-haired, red-eyed woman appear behind him with a kunai pointed towards his neck. And with a small bit of arm movement, Kurenai watched as the Nin dropped down from the tree with blood pooling out from his throat. Turning her head back towards her team, Kurenai couldn't help but widen her eyes in slight fear as she watched Naruto drop down in a thud, his wound now bleeding profoundly. "Naruto!" was the last thing Naruto heard before he felt his consciousness slip. Don't Naruto. Beep 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 beep. I was careless, I should have paid more attention, I could have gotten everyone killed, I'm a failure as a genin, thought a drowsy Naruto, as he laid his head against the soft medic bay bed he was placed in from his mission with Team 8 after having passed out from his shoulder wound. Slowly opening his eyes, Naruto couldn't do anything but squint his eyes as he attempted to get rid of the blurry visage. After a few tries he could finally see a bit better, however, coupled with his still slightly blurry vision and the high-pitched ringing sound running through his hearing. Naruto couldn't help but mentally whine at the unfair situation as he attempted to get his senses back on track so he could be released from his confines. However, much to his drowsy confusion, Naruto couldn't help but move his eyes around the room he was placed in with a narrowed, still blurry, glare as he slowly began to see equipment that he himself had never noticed before from his nearly regular visits. "He's waking up, Tsunade-sama," came the muffled voice towards his right. Tilting his head slightly, Naruto came upon the blurry sight of what appeared to be a black-haired doctor, their appearance escaping him as he simply couldn't pick out any details from his blurry state. "I see, take him off the drugs and help speed up his recovery rate. Although he probably won't even need the speed boost to recover within the next minute, but time is important. I guess there are still other patients in need within the hospital. Get going, Shizen. I expect to have a detailed report on this boy's healing and recovery rate by the end of the day," replied another muffled voice towards his right, once again drawing his attention as he once more couldn't find any identifying features of the person, although a name did make it slightly easier for him. Shizen must be the doctor on the right. Okay, so I know I'm under some sort of drug, it explains the drowsiness and my lack of senses, but why, thought Naruto with a small frown beginning to form onto his face as he suddenly felt his body fixing itself up as the doctor on his right moved away from his position towards the exit of the room. Turning his attention back towards the doctor to his right, Naruto watched as the blurry vision began to slowly fix itself before revealing a face he somewhat knew. The black-haired doctor was named Shizen, the student of one of the most renowned shinobi Tsunade Senju, the titled legendary Sannin. She also had been dubbed as the greatest medic to ever been born, something he knew for a fact was incorrect as he read some old scrolls talking about Hashirama Senju's gifts within the art of medical jutsu. It was truly amazing all the things the man could do, and it exciting trying to one day surpass the man with his own abilities. Suddenly Naruto felt a hand clamp on his left shoulder gently before feeling himself being slightly shaken. Naruto-san. You awake yet? Naruto-san. Can you hear me? Asked the woman with a small tilt of her head as she stared down towards the genin, who simply stared back up towards the woman for a moment before nodding his head. What happened? Asked Naruto, his body finally recovering its past functions as he moved his right arm to push himself up into a sitting position, much to the shock of the black-haired woman beside him. Shizen, who was still slightly shocked at the fact Naruto moved his right arm quite naturally, snapped herself out of her slight shock. Why, you were injured in a mission with Team 8 and taken to the hospital so that we could attempt to keep you alive. You were bleeding profoundly from the massive hole within your right shoulder, and it had come to a point where you were teetering along the edge of life and death. It's been a month since you have been awake and 4 weeks since we amputated your old arm off, muttered Shizen with a small bit of awe in her tone as Naruto simply sat himself up and glanced towards his right arm. Amputated? I think you might have gotten me wrong with someone else. I mean, I know for a fact that this is my arm, so mumbled Naruto as a reply as he clenched his hand into a fist, feeling the smooth, undamaged skin of his hand as an example. However, Naruto widened his eyes as he looked across the room to what appeared to be an arm floating in a vat of water held within a container. So what's with the creepy arm in a container doing there? Asked Naruto in a slightly freaked out tone as he watched the arm float up and down within its container, much to his secret disgust. Shizen, however, immediately walked over towards the container before opening the lid up and grabbing the limb from within, much to Naruto's now bluntly obvious disgust. Sure, he saw limbs and death during his mission, but the bloody arm looked creepy as fuck as it was floating in a container. Shizen didn't seem to notice Naruto's distress, however, as she brought the arm closer towards Naruto's bedridden form. This arm, Naruto-san, was the arm we had amputated from your body after the damage was impossible to repair. Not only were your nerves completely ripped, along with the muscle and bone, but the limb wasn't able to heal itself at all as we went into operation. And because of that, we decided to amputate the limb and give you the sad news about how it would be nearly impossible to work as a shinobi before you started to regrow a brand new limb within the next few weeks. The skill to regenerate is something that only the most skilled and intelligent medical nins could do when using the healing resuscitation regeneration technique, which is something that always drives the medical nin's energy away once complete, replied Shizen as she brought the limb towards Naruto, who simply gave the medical nin a small eyebrow raise before grabbing the limb from her hands. Shaking the limb slightly, Naruto could only blink for a moment before turning his attention back towards Shizen. Can you get me a microscope? I would rather see the blood cells still residing within the arm and compare it to that of my own blood. You know, just to make sure you aren't pulling my leg here, replied Naruto with a small tilt of his head. Getting a nod from Shizen, Naruto was then given a small microscope with few genjutsu markings written upon it before placing a small bit of the amputated arm's blood onto a small cylinder, which was then slid under the powerful microscope. Looking into the cylinder, Naruto couldn't help but let a small amount of sweat trail down his brow as he stared to what was defiantly his blood slowly float around within the cylinder placed under the microscope. Now you might be wondering how Naruto knew about what his blood looked like. Well, while resting in the hospital for a good amount of time, Naruto had decided to watch a female medical nin do her job, with her agreement of course, and learned a few things from simply watching and asking questions. One of those questions was how to tell your own blood from the rest. Holding the microscope towards Shizen, Naruto couldn't help but lift his apparently amputated limb in front of his eyes for a moment before handing it to Shizen once more. Okay, so I somehow am able to regenerate a limb after a month or so. Can I please go home now? I feel as if you will knock me out and use me as a creepy experiment, muttered Naruto as he focused on Shizen for a moment, much to her amusement. Shaking her head, Shizen simply placed both the microscope and arm away before giving the black-haired genin a small wave. My, quite an imagination you have. But no, we weren't planning to do anything of the sort. We were just running some tests on your body to find out if the healing factor could be passed on to your kids and the like, sort of like a bloodline if you will. However, the regeneration you seem to have is currently unstable, which makes it hard to predict if you have a bloodline or not. But I can safely say that this healing factor of yours is completely new and has never been discovered. We even went through your family history and found out that neither of your parents had the healing factor. One might even say that your healing ability goes beyond a regular Uzumaki's, so congratulations, I suppose? Replied Shizen with a small smile, much to Naruto's relief, as the whole kidnapped and experimented one thing left his mind. However, going back over to what she said, Naruto narrowed his eyes. You said that neither of my parents had the healing factor. Who are they? Asked Naruto, only now mentally berating himself for not asking a nurse or doctor to do blood work to find his biological parents, something that he should have thought of years ago. Shizen seemed slightly confused before she nodded her head. Your parents' names were Kato and Anna, no last names recorded. 2 civilian merchants who had died during the Kyuubi attack. It seems that they were also the last of their line, as your family were killed off in a bandit raid a few years before the Kyuubi attack, but looking at their profiles you would be easily mistaken to be anyone else's child, as they both only had brown hair and brown eyes within their family, so I guess you are a very special child, Naruto-san, replied Shizen with a small smile as she rested a hand on top of a silent Naruto's head for a moment. Giving a small smile, Naruto lifted his head up towards Shizen before giving a thumbs up and a small smile. Thank you, Shizen, it means a lot. You know well anyway. On to my next question, why exactly was I knocked out for a month? I was sure I would have been awake at least once during that period. Was it due to the drugs given to me? Asked Naruto with a tilt of his head, only getting a small embarrassed laugh from Shizen. That would be a mistake on our part, as one of the newer workers accidentally overloaded the sleeping gas and put you into a mini coma. Don't worry though, we will pay you back for the inconvenience if it will help, replied Shizen as Naruto gave a small snicker that gradually turned into a laugh, much to Shizen's confusion. Calming down from his laugh, Naruto turned his head towards Shizen with a smile as he raised his new right arm towards his eye before wiping a tear off as he calmed himself down. What's so funny? Asked Shizen as she tilted her head slightly, only getting another snicker from Naruto as he waved his right hand. Oh, nothing, I just had the thought of my sensei being the one who put me into sleep. He always does complain that I don't rest my body enough for his tastes. But that's Yamato sensei for ya, replied Naruto as he gripped the edge of the blanket sitting on top of his body before yanking it off. Bad choice as he came upon the sight of his naked figure with multiple cords placed onto his skin. Blinking, Naruto simply turned his head towards the, now blushing, Shizen as she turned her head away from him slightly while sending a quick glance towards him every few seconds as she attempted to stop gawking at the sight of the 13-year-old's naked body. Giving the doctor a blank stare, Naruto simply ripped all the cords that sat on his skin off before walking towards the desk in front of his medical bed before clothing himself in his regular garb. Finishing himself up in record time, Naruto turned his head towards Shizen with a blank look before grabbing the doorknob of his room. Pervert, was the last thing Naruto muttered before leaving the hospital room, leaving a blushing Shizen behind as she attempted to get rid of the image of the regrettably amazing 13-year-old body. With Naruto shutting the door, Naruto could only release a small sigh before walking down the hospital hallway with a blank stare. Internally he was now red as a tomato as his mind went back to that embarrassing scene of him being naked in front of the doctor. Sure, he knew that people change him into a hospital garb and all, but he wasn't changed at all. Just stripped and naked. And that felt wrong in so many ways. Shaking his head slightly from the thought, Naruto continued to walk down the hospital hallway with a blank stare as he traveled towards the elevator. Knowing the procedure already, Naruto simply stood within the elevator with his arms crossed and his back pressed up against the elevator wall. Once appearing at the hospital's entry, Naruto simply walked towards the small notepad near the front desk before writing his name down. Finishing his little requirement, Naruto shut his eyes slightly before walking out through the front of the hospital, his back never turning as he left the front doors of the hospital. Looking up towards the sky, Naruto couldn't help but release a small sigh of relief when he felt the rays of the sun pierce through the clear blue sky and hit his exposed face. The small surge of wind brushing past him only helped make the feeling all the more relaxing. Do you always have to be so dramatic? Asked a voice towards his left. Turning his head slightly, Naruto could only give a blank stare towards the owner's voice. And how does spending a month in a hospital sound dramatic? Asked Naruto as he pointed towards the man who stood beside him with a smirk on his face. Raising his arms up in a shrug, Yamato couldn't help but chuckle slightly at his student before placing a hand on top of the now slightly longer, spiky black hair of his student, completely ignoring the two red orbs staring at him with a twitch. I don't know, maybe risking your life to save a beautiful maiden in dire need before dropping down after the battle? Now doesn't that sound dramatic or what? Asked Yamato as he moved his hand away from his apprentice's head, much to the joy of the genin. However, Naruto simply crossed his arms and sent a huff as he looked away from Yamato. Yeah, maiden my ass. The mission was a complete failure, and we could have not only lost over 30 to 50 civilian lives, but also 3 clan heirs in that single mission had it not been for me being cautious. I mean seriously, had I followed Team 8 as they continued to jump, I would have also been caught and most likely wouldn't have been able to help escape. Honestly, they need a new name for the so-called Ice Queen. She was way too lax in the mission that I was more aware, besides the point that I am nearly always aware of everything, including the small smirk that's beginning to form on your face, sensei. But she didn't even at least give me a chance to warn the squad about the seals stuck up. Sorry anyway, Yamato sensei. Can we get a mission or something? I really need to regain my skills after a month of lying in bed, and a mission will help out, replied Naruto as he turned his attention back to his sensei, who simply stared at him with a small grin. For some reason, that grin made a disturbed feeling erupt within his stomach. No, was Yamato's quick reply, only causing the black-haired teen to widen his eyes as he looked up towards his sensei in shock. Why? I'm fine, sensei. I feel like I can take on the whole world, shouted Naruto in desperation as he attempted to prove his point by poking his bicep, much to Yamato's amusement as he watched his apprentice jump around. While he was a fair bit more mature than others his age, he was still a child at heart, it seemed. Chuckling slightly, Yamato placed his hand on his apprentice's shoulder before giving a small squeeze, snapping Naruto out of his pseudo-tantrum as he turned his attention back towards his sensei. Giving a small thumbs up, Yamato couldn't help but smile as he looked down towards his apprentice. I would rather we go get something to eat to celebrate your first S-rank mission. After all, it isn't all that common for a family member of the Fire Daimyo to speak such passion about their savior after all, replied Yamato, watching as Naruto's eyes slowly began to widen in shock. S rank, something that Naruto himself doubted he would hear until he was well on down his life. Sure, he has heard of the legendary feats of Kakashi Hatake and even the Sannin who would give or take a few years older than him achieving such missions, but he wasn't even a genin for over 2 months, well, one before his small coma, and he had apparently completed an S-rank mission while participating on a regular C-rank. That shit is not normal. After Naruto and his sensei had gotten their lunch, Naruto immediately went towards the Hokage tower, his sensei Yamato following along as he knew what was on his student's mind as he watched Naruto run towards the Hokage tower with a look of shock and surprise, something that hadn't left Naruto's face even during their lunch together. However, while Naruto understood the chances of a mission being bumped up due to unknown threats that may appear, he never thought that his mission rank would have been bumped up so high. But what was the reason for it? He was sure Yamato said something, but he was too focused on what his sensei had told him regarding him completing an S-rank mission to be completely focused on what the man had said after the whole "you completed an S-rank mission" thing. Shaking his head slightly at his confusion, Naruto tilted his head upward slightly as he watched himself pass by the academy side of the building before speeding himself around the corner towards the main Kage entrance of the building. Stopping himself just outside of the front door, Naruto simply released a small calming breath of air before walking inside the building with a calm facade, his mind simply swimming with thoughts, as he got the all good from the secretary as he waited in a small line for his fellow comrades to complete their business. However, it seems that the Hokage was actually expecting him as Yamato simply grabbed the scruff of his black chunin-type vest before disappearing within a shunshin, much to Naruto's internal jealousy, as he himself couldn't use the jutsu, simply because his sensei wouldn't teach him, the bastard. When Naruto got his bearings from the shunshin, which was a real waste as he was just outside the door, Naruto came upon the sight of what appeared to be both the daimyo and the 4th Hokage having small talk while Team 8, who he noticed looked slightly peppy, stood by waiting for something to happen as he too waited for the Hokage and the daimyo to finish their chat. However, much to his shock, the moment he actually announced his appearance, via him sneezing silently, the fire daimyo and Hokage both seemed to stop their conversation. Now normally when this happens it means 2 things could happen. 1. Instantaneous death for disrupting 2 important figures, something that he was dreading as the 2 began to stare at him. Even more daunting was the daimyo's really ridiculous appearance and weird-looking eyes. 2. Banishment, and then killed via Hunter-nin later on. Widening his eyes slightly, Naruto quickly moved his head down in a bow as he quickly began to apologize, much to the daimyo's amusement as he looked down towards the black spiky-haired child. "Sorry for the intrusion, daimyo-sama, Hokage-sama. I will leave immediately," shouted Naruto in a panicky tone, much to the growing grin being held on Yamato's face as he stood near the door with his arms crossed. However, before Naruto could even lift his head up, Naruto could only hear the sound of laughter come from in front of him as he slowly began to raise his head in confusion. When he did raise his head, however, he came upon the sight of the daimyo laughing into his hand with the Hokage giving him a small smile as he waited for the fire daimyo to calm down from his laughter. It took a while, but the daimyo did eventually calm down from his little laughing high, much to Naruto's confusion as he simply stood there with a confused tilt of the head. Finishing his chuckling, the daimyo could only look at the black-haired child in front of him with a small smile. "Oh, this is Naruto-chan. What a dashing young man you have here, Hokage-san. I could even mistake him for your son if he had shorter blonde hair and blue eyes. How marvelous! Now tell me, Naruto-san. If you could have anything in the world, what would it be? Wealth? Power? Women?" asked the fire daimyo with a small tilt of his head, making the black-haired genin mentally image the apparently respectable man in front of him as very dopey. Scratching the back of his head, Naruto seemed to be somewhat confused at the question. However, seeing as how the fire daimyo asked him, he replied, "I guess actually nothing comes to mind. I guess the most apparent thing for me currently would be money, since I have to pay off the rent which I now owe since I was knocked out, but other than that nothing comes to mind." "Why do you ask, daimyo-sama?" asked Naruto with a small tilt of his head, gaining a small nod from the daimyo as he turned his attention back towards the Hokage. "You were right, such a brilliant child," spoke the daimyo before turning his attention back towards Naruto, completely missing the Hokage's small smirk on his face as he looked towards the ruby-eyed child. Walking so that he was directly in front of Naruto, the fire daimyo simply reached his right hand into his left sleeve before pulling out a small brown bag before holding it out towards Naruto, who simply blinked. "Take it," grinned the daimyo as he shook the bag slightly in front of Naruto's hands, much to the child's confusion as he simply placed his hands beneath the brown bag before holding it slightly in front of him as if the daimyo was going to take it back in a moment's notice, something that he full-heartedly thought was going to happen. However, it seemed he was wrong as the man turned his attention back towards the Hokage before holding a scroll towards him. "This scroll has my approval of Naruto-kun here completing an S-rank retrieval mission. I shall be going now, Hokage-san. May we meet again later," spoke the daimyo with a big dopey smile before once again turning his attention back towards Naruto, as he then placed a hand on his shoulder. "Naruto-kun. My niece Naho sends her thanks," finished the daimyo before walking out of the room with a smile. When the daimyo had left, however, it seems Team 8 could only shout their shock out into the world as they finally relapsed over what the fire daimyo had said. "No way! That is complete bullshit, Hokage-sama. Our whole squad should have gotten that S-rank mission stat. How come the dobe gets it instead of me? Shouted Kiba with a glare as he pointed towards the still slightly shocked Naruto as he began to prod the brown bag with his finger, much to the Hokage's amusement before he returned his focus on Team 8, who now were simply staring at him as if he was going to change his decision about the mission rank. Shaking his head, Minato couldn't help but release a small sigh of irritation as he thought over how he was going to peacefully speak towards Team 8, and why exactly they hadn't gotten the S-rank official stat. However, it seemed Kurenai had once more decided to open her mouth. I agree with my genin Hokage-sama. It is not fair when my whole team contributed to the safety of the daimyo's niece. As such, I believe my whole squad deserves the mission stat being recorded as an S-rank, spoke Kurenai with a soft tone, only getting a small sigh from Minato as he pointed towards Naruto, who was now grinning evilly as he looked into the bag full of Rio bills, something that shocked the hell out of him as he began to count the money the daimyo had given him for no reason. The dude seriously had nothing better to do than literally throw money away. Kurenai-san. Now while I understand where you are coming from, I had both the civilians who were captured by the bandits and missing ninja both speak about how exactly your team had contributed during the mission, which was only using the enemy's Fuinjutsu barrier against them as a shield for Naruto's explosive kunai barrage attack, which was the clone of Naruto's idea in the first place, mind you. Then there was also the chunin Naruto killed while protecting, if I am not mistaken, Kurenai-san, you, before passing out onto the ground due to both chakra exhaustion for using such a chakra-intensive technique like the Kage Bunshin along with his right-hand manipulation, which I have heard from Yamato still takes quite a bit of chakra away from Naruto, as he is still not a master at nature manipulation. I will acknowledge the fact that you did also defeat the remaining chunin Kurenai, but during the whole mission your team was more of a hindrance, if not a blessing in disguise, as Naruto here managed to both save your squad and the trap civilians within the span of minutes of finding you. Now when you look at that, why exactly does your team deserve an S-rank mission payment and stat? Asked Minato curiously as he looked towards the raven-haired Jonin instructor with a small tilt of his head. Kurenai could only lower her head in defeat as she recoiled how Naruto was truly the only one to do anything within their mission. Lowering her head even further, Kurenai couldn't help but move her hands to her lap as she waited with her head down low. Sorry for that small episode, Hokage-sama. You are indeed correct. Thank you for deciding to grant my team and me an A-rank pay and stat. My team and I will now take our leave, replied Kurenai, only to narrow her eyes slightly as Kiba began to open his mouth. Thankfully she managed to cover his mouth before walking out with her team, sending the Hokage another small nod of gratitude even if there was a small scowl on her face as she left. Although, it was probably due to the fact that a genin completed an S-rank mission, even if it was only due to who happened to be captured within the mission, within the span of 2 and a bit months while she had only completed 14 S-ranks over the course of her lifetime. And let me tell you, there was a good few years between the two. Watching as teammate left the room, Minato couldn't help but release a small sigh of irritation before turning his head back towards Naruto, who had once more snapped back into his shinobi mode after his little childish money moment. Something Yamato made to capture on a camera he had on hand from the office entrance. Giving the genin a small smile, Minato couldn't help but feel proud of one of his genin managing to complete a mission rank that even his own daughters hadn't done yet. It just made him feel glad that Konoha will be better protected by the younger generation. So, Naruto, how does it feel being the first genin within your generation to achieve an S-rank mission? Something that not even my own daughters, not that I would let them risk their lives like that, haven't achieved? It must have been exciting, right? Asked Minato with a small smile, only getting a shake from Naruto as his eyes narrowed slightly. While the joy of being awarded an S-rank mission is very welcomed, I know for a fact that it was only due to the daimyo's niece Naho, was it? Being there, and it's because of this mission I will likely have a target on my back during the chunin exams should any foreign shinobi find that out, as it would either be a deterrent or an attraction. Deterrent to those who think I am either a jonin in disguise or really strong for my age, an attraction to those who would like credit for beating, and or killing, a genin who had completed an S-rank. Either way, I will have a target on my back if such information is found out. So yes, while I do enjoy completing an S-rank, it also irritates me as I now have a chance of becoming a target at a young, and regrettably weak age, replied Naruto with his arms crossed, much to the Hokage's amazement as he looked towards the genin. Giving a small proud smile, Minato couldn't help but let a small chuckle out as he walked back towards his Hokage chair and placed himself down while using his hands to hold his head up as he looked towards the black-haired genin. That's an incredible view you have there, Naruto. Not much genin hell. Chunin view it like that, it just shows that you are a prodigy of the highest caliber. Please don't call me a prodigy, Hokage-sama. I like to think that as a civilian-bred genin, I have worked hard for my skills and abilities, and because of that I do not want to have the title of prodigy, or genius allocated towards myself. I am a genin who brought himself to the hospital just so that he could master a skill. Sorry for my intrusion, but that is how I feel, Hokage-sama, spoke Naruto, immediately apologizing for cutting of the leader of his village. However, Minato's smile simply widened as he looked towards the genin. Very well then, Naruto. Congratulations on achieving your first S-rank mission. Continue to grow stronger so that Konoha can continue living within its peaceful time. Now off you go. I will either summon you if I need you for a mission or otherwise. finished Minato with his smile still in place, as he made a small shooing motion with his hand towards the genin. Giving a small nod, Naruto turned around before leaving, absent-mindedly noticing that his sensei wasn't following him out as he left the room. Watching the genin leave, Minato couldn't help but release a tired sigh as he moved his eyes along towards Yamato, who could only release a tired sigh himself. Are you sure about this, Tenzo? I know that I have been asking you a lot to help my own daughters with the Kyuubi's chakra control, but are you sure you are willing to give up training Naruto just for my benefit? Asked Minato with a tired look in his eyes as he glanced up towards the ceiling where he knew his most trusted laid in wait before turning his attention back towards the jonin waiting by the door with a sorrowed look. Why yes, training your daughters and being able to control their biju's chakra is more important than training a genin, especially if what you have told me about the night of the Kyuubi attack is true. Which I do not doubt to be in fact true, but it still just doesn't feel right for me to up and leave my genin. He did achieve so much in a single month, and he would have gotten even stronger had he had the month he lost due to his injury during the mission. Hokage-sama, is there anything you can do to keep Naruto trained while I help your daughters in controlling the beast's power? Asked Tenzo quietly as he stared towards the Hokage, who had now simply sank into his seat. Looking towards the desk in front of him, Minato couldn't help but feel agitated as he thought of the possible things to do concerning Naruto. He knew that there wasn't simply enough jonin to hand around, especially to a solo genin who had only been allowed to continue being a genin because his sensei had requested an apprenticeship for him. But now, because of the fact that his daughters needed to be controlled and supported during their Jinchuriki training, the solo genin was now being left with no one guarding and training him. Overall, it was a complete headache. He could simply throw Naruto into another team and create a special team of 5 members, being 4 genin and 1 jonin, but that would make the whole team's dynamic fail and break as they would have to incorporate another member into their tactics. And because of that, the option of putting Naruto into another team was no longer an option. He could however send Naruto back towards the academy to wait for a new team to be placed on, but then it would backfire as it would be limiting the genin's surprisingly fast growth. Which was something he himself would never do. After getting rid of the 2 most obvious things he could have done, which would have backfired and weakened Konoha in the short and long run, Minato could only think of 2 things to do. 1. Place Naruto in the reserve so that he would be able to take missions with other shinobi, which didn't help the whole training situation as being a reserve would mean you could be tasked to a mission at random times, which would limit the time allowed to train in a ninja's skills, something they would then make Naruto weaker in the long run. Or, he could make Naruto a solo team with him being the leader along with giving him jonin level access to the ninja library within the building. But then there was the risk of Naruto himself dying due to learning something that was too difficult to learn at a young age or otherwise. But with the second option, Naruto would be able to train himself along with choosing when he would like a mission. Of course, he would have to limit what missions Naruto himself could do, but he would be able to have a larger amount of leeway when it came to training and or missions. So I guess option 2 then. Very well, Naruto, let's see what you can do on your own, thought Minato with a small blank stare before looking up towards Tenzo with a small smile. I'm sorry, Tenzo. I won't be able to have Naruto trained by any other ninja, however I will instead make him a solo squad with jonin level clearance within the ninja library downstairs. Do you think that will be enough to support Naruto in your opinion? Asked Minato with a soft tone, gaining a small thoughtful look from Tenzo as nodded his head slightly. Yes, Hokage-sama. I believe Naruto will be able to continue his training by leaps and bounds, even when not being directly taught by a teacher. Also, if I may, Hokage-sama, please call me Yamato. Tenzo is a name that I don't want to be referenced by apart from 2 other people. It just brings back memories is all, replied Yamato, gaining a nod from Minato as he then proceeded to pull out a scroll from his table before writing down a small note. While this was happening, Yamato could only watch with a small bit of sadness as he was figuratively throwing Naruto out on his own only after training him for a month, something that internally sickened him as he chose duty over his own comrade, but it was for the better good, he supposed. Bring his attention back towards Minato, Yamato watched as the 4th Hokage attached his small note on a carrier bird's leg before releasing it out into the sky with nothing more than a slight whistle. Watching the bird go, Yamato couldn't help but release a tired sigh. Good luck, Naruto. With Naruto 20 minutes later. Seriously? Did he just seriously get a note from the Hokage, who he just saw 10 minutes ago, saying that his sensei Yamato will no longer be able to take him as an apprentice, and he is now a solo team with jonin level clearance for the library? Fuck yeah, sure, losing his sensei hurt a bit, okay, a lot, but with this opportunity it would allow him to learn whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. It was also a lot more practical than having his sensei randomly appear and say they had a mission. Too many times did the man appear in his hospital room saying they had a mission not even a few hours after being placed in the damn room. But to be fair, though, it was kinda his fault, he was nearly always within the hospital room, which had been allocated for him as he was quite famous for being near constantly injured and placed within the hospital room of his. Some doctors even became regulars to him whenever he was in for a little recovery, although that didn't stop the doctors from constantly harping on about how he was a growing boy who was spending way too much time in a hospital. They had a fair point, he practically lived in the place. Shaking his head, Naruto reread over the scroll once more before letting a sigh out. Okay, sure, he just lost his sensei, who was probably the only reason why he was as strong as he was now. But just because he lost his sensei doesn't mean he lost his abilities and drive. After all, someone was going to have to show the shinobi clans who's boss. Sending chakra into the scroll, Naruto watched as a small poof of smoke escaped the small seal imprinted onto the page's corner before watching as a small plastic card fell from the scroll he was reading towards the ground. But with a quick lift of his knee and a swift slice of his right hand, Naruto managed to catch the card before it dropped to the ground. Moving his right hand closer towards his face, Naruto came upon the sight of what appeared to be a small informations card that had his details, along with the Hokage signature near the bottom, and a clearance level, which had also, like mentioned within the letter, stated that he had Jonin level access to the ninja library. Lifting his right hand up towards the clear blue sky, Naruto couldn't help but grin as the silver plastic card seemed to shine as he stared up towards it with his grin slowly widening as the seconds flew by. Well, this is going to be interesting. How did it come to this? Not even 3 weeks since my sensei had to leave the now dubbed one-man squad did I now find myself in a position where I might not be able to survive. But in all seriousness, how did this happen? If you were to tell me that in 3 weeks I would fight someone who I would believe to be a god in human form, I would probably laugh and go buy a bowl of ramen to eat, completely ignoring the person's words. I mean, could you blame me? Not even the moment I got my clearance card did I start spending a measurable chunk of my time in the bloody library learning everything I possibly could, and because of the fact that I had 2 Kage Bunshin that could work for over 3 hours each without any chakra-intensive training. As such, he managed to gain beginner skills in Fuinjutsu theory, poison making, trap making, team strategies, which he used clones to mimic and train in, and even Fuinjutsu practice. Now, looking at that list, Naruto knew he was gaining strength at a fast rate for a beginner anyway, as he was still working on the beginner books for all those subjects. But when you only have 2 clones who can be somewhat helpful, it does make the learning process a bit faster until they run out of chakra and require you to regain your chakra, enough to summon 2 more clones with at least a couple of hours worth of time in them. But hey, 3 hours is a long time, especially when you have the clones make sure that they memorize everything they learn to help boost your own growth. Something that struck me as weird, as most ninja, chunin and otherwise jonin, say that there is no point in only having 2 clones help speed up their growth. I mean, sure, if you could summon 10 or so clones that could last 10 hours would be a massive speed increase, but 2 clones still help you out, especially if you use them right. Regardless, even a bit of training would always benefit you in some way. Even if it only increases your chance of survival out in the shinobi world by 0.01%, it's still better than a 0% survival chance increase. Guess you take what you can get, you know. Naruto-san, one of us will need to escape to notify Hokage-sama about this person. There is no way someone your age could have literally destroyed our entire unit all for fun. The person here must be a Jinchuriki or something, maybe a Dijitsu user we show. And like that, the final member of the squad I was placed in was dead. One more falling to the hand of the chibi monster who had attacked the squad after the mission was completed. Gnashing his teeth, Naruto couldn't help but release an angry sigh as he pushed himself off tree branch after tree branch as he made his way towards Konoha, his speed being around high genin as he kept his senses on high alert. He couldn't fall here, he had to make sure the possible threat was known to the Hokage. The threat's abilities were godly even when complaining it to the standards of bloodline shinobi. There you are! Shouted a voice towards Naruto's right, causing him to widen his eyes in shock as he used his chakra to latch onto a tree branch, stopping him from colliding with a massive blast of flames, easily drawing sweat from Naruto's brow as he turned his attention towards the white-haired teen sitting on a tree branch similar to his own towards his right. The female teen in question had long white shining hair that fell down past her shoulders and ran along her upper back, the tips of her hair slightly curving inward as she sat against the hard oak wood tree branch with her 2 purple ring-like eyes gazing into his own red ones with an expression of amusement riding along her delicate face, her slightly red lipstick-colored lips holding a grin on her face as she absent-mindedly checked her nails. Naruto couldn't identify anything else as she wore a long hime-kimono that reached slightly above her feet, showing that she was also barefooted. Oh, she also had 2 white horns jutting out from her head. Gritting his teeth, Naruto quickly threw his right arm out, sending his thin razor-like wire out in an attempt to bind the woman, but with a small grin. The woman simply sent his wires back without any effort. How she did that Naruto had no clue, but what worried him was that it definitely wasn't wind release that pushed it back. Sending wind nature chakra into his still extended wire, Naruto threw his arm out in a slicing motion, watching as his razor-enhanced wire sliced through the air as it flew towards the white-haired girl, who simply gave him a superior than now look before once more sending his wire away. Gnashing his teeth now, Naruto decided to retreat. He knew for a fact that he needed to get this information towards the Hokage ASAP. Placing his hands together, Naruto summoned 2 Kage Bunshin to his side, which seemed to distract the woman as he sent his clones in to stall her before dashing off once more. Where do you think you're going? Asked the woman as she held her hand out towards Naruto's back, completely ignoring the clones as they charged at her before muttering a word. And like that, Naruto felt himself being propelled towards the woman back first, widening his eyes as he regained the memories of his clones being destroyed by the repelling jutsu she had. Naruto grit his teeth as he once again sent a wire to wrap around a tree before holding on as he felt his body being pulled towards the woman, who was now laughing slightly at his effort. As shit. muttered Naruto before moving a single hand off his supposed lifeline of a wire before opening his back pouch, sending all within its confines propelling towards the white-haired woman, who seemed to recognize the impending danger of multiple ninja tools flying towards her at a fast speed. Feeling his body get released from whatever the woman did, Naruto propelled himself with wind chakra before using his wire as a swing to create some form of distance between him and the woman. Alas, it was for naught as Naruto watched a stray kunai fly past him and slice his wire, sending him plummeting towards the ground at a fast rate. Gritting his teeth as he flipped around in the air, Naruto quickly sent out what was left of his wires out from both of his wrists towards two trees that were beside him, before enhancing his wires with chakra, making them hook onto each other. It was also because of that Naruto managed to hold himself between the two wires. Snap! Gah! Screamed Naruto as his eyes snapped wide open at the pain he felt as someone used a chakra-enhanced knee to his cervical vertebrae, causing the top of his spine to snap inwards, sending his head up from the force, only to come upon the sight of an elbow descending straight towards his face. It wasn't a few moments later did Naruto's screams gained a new pitch as his skull dented inwards slightly from the blow. But not only did the blow cause Naruto a large amount of pain, it also caused him to lose concentration on his chakra, thus making his wires detach themselves, causing the black-haired teen to plummet once more towards the ground. Landing on the ground with his back, Naruto couldn't stop the scream that erupted from his throat once more, as he felt his body rock with pain. It wasn't long before another surge of pain rocked through Naruto's body as he felt 2 feet land directly on his ribs, crushing them inwards and causing even more pain to rack through his body. However, it seemed the white-haired girl wasn't done as she simply walked of Naruto's body before leaning down and pressing a hand onto his throat. Snap! Naruto's eyes were already as wide as they possibly could. They couldn't widen any further from the feeling of his throat seemingly compacting itself and restricting a large amount of air moving into his body. The whole throat being crinkled up also had the added effect of having his screams come to an end as his voice couldn't project itself anymore without the chance of losing what precious air he had left. Shutting his eyes tightly, Naruto couldn't help but scream internally as his body simply racked itself in pain from the attacks the woman had done to him. Now I thought you supposed shinobi were supposed to be tough? But alas, all you really are worth are just simple chakra batteries that need to be drained. But I have to admit you also have the capabilities of real-life training dummies, so well timed to steal your chakra like Great Grand did before, muttered the woman with a small grin as she lowered her hand towards Naruto's chest with an expression of excitement. Naruto however felt pissed, he felt angry, he felt cheated. Nothing more than a chakra battery or even a real-life test dummy. Am I seriously going to die like this? Like a helpless child? Was all I talked about simply words without any meaning behind them? Fuck no, I refuse to fucking die like this, screamed Naruto mentally before feeling his body explode with his chakra, causing the teen above him to recoil her hands slightly before getting a fist straight to the face from the once down shinobi. Pushing himself up, Naruto narrowed his eyes in anger as he felt his chakra boost what was apparently a new genetic trait that was created within his body, a regeneration/healing factor that even made doctors envious, as explained by Shizen. Feeling his face, spine and ribs fix themselves, Naruto cracked his knuckles before dashing off towards the white-haired teen, drawing a surprised look from her face as she didn't react in time towards the right hook from Naruto, sending her head slightly towards the right before feeling the hand of Naruto grip one of her horns before dragging it down, along with her head, towards a rising knee which impacted perfectly against her nose, causing blood to gush out from the teen's nostrils before an expression of hate appeared within her eyes as she blasted Naruto away with the repelling technique. Getting flung within the air and colliding with a tree, Naruto couldn't help but grit his teeth as he stood himself up before running through a single hand sign. Wind release, air bullets, shouted Naruto as he spat out a multitude of highly condensed air bullets the size of small basketballs towards his opponent. Gritting his teeth in anger, the woman simply shot a slightly larger than average basketball-sized fireball to counter Naruto's wind bullets. When the two attacks collided, however, the wind bullets all combusted inwards, causing heat flame to explode along with the bullets, creating a makeshift flaming smoke screen. Something that irritated the teen as her special eyes couldn't see through the technique. Seems she was overconfident when she arrived on the planet his great-grandmother had left to. Seems that she was overconfident on her abilities, even when she had only strengthened one of the paths her eyes had given her, much like most of her clan's men had been birthed with. Guess she would fix her mistake once she deals with the black-haired teen battling her. Well, that was the thought of the woman before she suddenly widened her eyes in shock as a slightly burned Naruto dashed through the flames, his chunin-type jacket alighting itself as the flames latched onto the cloth before slowly spreading from the hem of the jacket. Ignoring the burning cloth, Naruto continued his pursuit through the flames before sending a straight punch towards the woman's face, only to recoil his fist in shock as he felt the bones within his hand crack from the impact. Widening his eyes slightly, Naruto tilted his head back towards the woman who was now grinning once more as she now casually gripped the black-haired teen by the shirt. Ah, did the big bad shinobi child hurt his hand? Ah, that's so adorable. Oh well, now where were we? Oh right. Me about to drain your energy to nothing, spoke the teen in a joyful tone, only to get an elbow to her jaw, causing her to release the shinobi within her grasp. Feeling himself once again free, Naruto quickly gripped his still burning jacket before ripping it clean off his form. Holding the still burning jacket, Naruto forced himself forward onto the white-haired girl before smothering the teen with the jacket. Sadly, Naruto couldn't escape the repelling technique which once again sent him flying, this time straight into the air. Gritting her teeth, the white-haired girl simply held a hand up towards the now descending Naruto with a glare. "Chibaku Tensei!" shouted the white-haired girl, sending a small ball the size of an average tennis ball straight towards Naruto's chest. It wasn't a few moments later did Naruto widen his eyes as he suddenly stopped plummeting to his doom, but that didn't mean he was safe, as from up in the air Naruto watched as bits of the earth began to break apart and fly towards the orb that was now stuck to his chest. Gritting his teeth, Naruto watched as the ground below him began to break apart and fly towards him at breakneck speeds, something that internally terrified the black-haired teen as he began to feel his body being wedged between multiple layers of earth. However, Naruto's saving grace came in the form of the sound of the white-haired girl's scream as she too was sucked up into the sky where the orb was in the center of layers upon layers of earth. Thankfully for Naruto, who was now being crushed from the large amount of dirt and earth, the technique seemed to release itself as Naruto felt the crushing earth loosen itself and break apart. When Naruto actually got to see the sunlight once more, he realized that he was falling once more. "Shinra Tensei!" came a shout towards his left. Turning his head, Naruto watched as the white-haired girl blast all the pieces of earth besides her explode as if gravity itself crushed it down to the very molecule. Seeing as how he was now plummeting, Naruto narrowed his eyes as he mentally felt how much wire length he still had in his wrist-mounted wire gadget. Much to his joy, it seemed the right-handed gadget still had a third of its original length still there, while the left-hand gadget seemed to be damaged and unusable. Watching as the white-haired woman continued to fall, at a seemingly slower rate than himself, Naruto threw his right wrist towards the woman, his wire just managing to reach her and connect itself with Naruto's chakra. Grinning slightly, Naruto pulled the wire towards him, dragging the white-haired woman by the waist where his wire had hooked onto before catching the woman by her wrists. Much to her shock as Naruto gave her a consenting look as he moved his body towards her back, his arms now locked around her form, which in turn prevented the use of her arms. "Going down!" shouted Naruto as he began to spin his body mid-air, causing the already plummeting duo to increase their spiraling speed as the earth began to approach even faster than before. Something the woman in Naruto's grip seemed to notice if the widening of her purple-ringed eyes gave it away. "Don't you dare!" shouted the teen as she tried in vain to free her arms from Naruto's grip, much to Naruto's irritation as he actually began to struggle holding the woman as they plummeted. "Sorry lady, but I sure as hell ain't letting a threat like you walk around, especially after she kills my team captain and squad mates," shouted Naruto as he now began to use his stage 1 wind chakra training to speed up his and the teen girl's spiral towards the ground. It wasn't long before Naruto suddenly feel his chakra reserves plummet as the seconds go by. Gritting his teeth, Naruto could only glare towards the back of the head of the white-haired woman. "You're feeling it now, right? The loss of your precious chakra. What will you do now, shinobi?" shouted the woman as she turned her head slightly, managing to get one of her famed, not to Naruto's knowledge, eyes aimed straight into Naruto's own red eye. Giving a grin, Naruto simply began to tuck his head in slightly. "Isn't a drop?" shouted Naruto as both he and the mysterious teen were mere centimeters off the ground. "Shinra Tensei." And like before, Naruto felt himself suddenly fly away from an invisible force. Smashing his back onto a tree, Naruto couldn't help but clench his jaw slightly as he felt his body slump onto the ground. His energy and chakra now running on fumes as he watched the white-haired woman stand up from the large crater within the ground which was caused from her attack. Watching as she stood up, Naruto forced his body once more to stand. Pushing himself forward into a limping walk, Naruto began to channel chakra what was now left of his pitiful reserves into his right hand, intent on ending the battle between himself and the mysterious teen. However, it seemed he wouldn't be able to as he felt his body lock itself in place before dropping towards the ground. Thankfully for Naruto, however, he managed to catch himself on a single knee before feeling the pent-up chakra within his right hand disappear. Tilting his head upwards slightly, Naruto couldn't help but release a small sigh of defeat as he gazed into the purple-ringed eyes of the woman now standing in front of him. Naruto could only watch as she lowered a hand to his head before grabbing a fist full of his spiky black hair before being pulled up to a standing position. Now having the enough strength to stare defiantly into the woman's eyes, Naruto could only stare with a half-lidded gaze as he forced his eyes to be at least open during his final confrontation between his team's killer and his own. However, it seemed the final thought was for naught as the woman gave him a predatory smile. "Seems you aren't just another chakra battery. I even have to admit that this little battle of ours was most amusing. For that reason you shall now be my personal prey whom I shall fight when I please and desire. For that reason I will let you live on the condition that you get stronger so that I may simply beat you down once again with my own strength. Do you understand?" asked the white-haired woman with a smirk, only causing the black-haired teen to shakily raise his right hand up into the air in the shape of a fist. "Why, you killed MMIC comrades, and yo, you think I would let you leave? I will stop you," muttered Naruto with a small bit of blood now escaping his lips as he slowly sent his fist towards the woman's face, much to her amusement as she simply raised her own unused hand to catch the fist. "Who knew there was such a determined person my own age?" "You sure are amusing. What's my newest prey's name?" asked the woman, her pale purple eyes staring deep into Naruto's own crimson-colored ones. Gritting his teeth again, Naruto narrowed his eyes as a last-ditch plan formulated in his head. Using whatever physical strength Naruto had left, he reached into his left kunai pouch pocket before gripping an exploding note tightly. "My name," mumbled Naruto slightly as he snapped his eyes wide open, his second wind rushing through his body like a tidal wave as he ripped the exploding note out of his pouch before slapping it across the woman's face, much to her minuscule shock, before using his legs to use the woman's body as a springboard to escape her grasp. Landing a few feet away from the woman, Naruto raised up the hand sign for Kai before giving the woman a bloody, but determined, grin on his face. "Is Naruto?" shouted Naruto as he activated the exploding tag, which soon exploded in a massive storm of flames and smoke which then covered both Naruto and the clearing the battle had taken place. Dropping to his knees within the smoke, Naruto couldn't help but let out a small cough as the smoke slowly evaporated. With his second wind now gone, Naruto couldn't hold himself up anymore as he fell face down onto the ground, his body now not moving an inch as he lay there with his eyes half-lidded once more. That should have done it, muttered Naruto mentally as he simply laid on his belly, watching as the smoke disappeared into the air. "So your name is Naruto? Interesting. My name is Kagumi Satsuki. Remember the name of your predator Naruto. We will meet again sooner rather than later," spoke a voice towards his ear softly in an amused tone, much to Naruto's internal shock as he couldn't even move his body enough to confirm if it was indeed Kagumi's voice speaking to him as he laid there. However, Naruto did have enough energy to know that the woman slapped something onto his back, which then made its way through his somewhat destroyed shirt and onto his skin, where he then felt it seep into him. "Well then, enjoy your time. Pray your predator will be enjoying the hunt," muttered Kagumi with a small smile before disappearing as if she was an illusion. Not that Naruto could have seen her do it. Clenching his teeth, Naruto could only lay in the clearing with a small resigned expression sitting upon his face as he waited out the few moments before his body would completely give up on itself, sending him to sweet blissful unconsciousness. But as Naruto did bide his time before he fell into unconsciousness, he did hear the sound of a voice screaming, "We got one over here." And with that, Naruto shut his eyes as his consciousness blanked itself in darkness. "Kagumi Satsuki, your squad had run into a group of rogue nin? Hi Hokage-sama. Were you able to identify who exactly the ninjas were?" "Sorry Hokage-sama. It was a quick attack. One I couldn't believe I survived. It was all pure luck." "Very well Naruto, you are dismissed." "Thank you Hokage-sama." Narrowing his eyes, Naruto replayed the conversation throughout his head. He didn't know exactly how or why he said that his squad had been attacked by a group of rogue ninjas. Hell, he knew for a fact that it wasn't the typical rogue ninjas that had attacked, but someone that wasn't human. It had to have been impossible to have skills like the teenage girl, Kagumi Satsuki, had displayed in their battle a few days ago. It seemed that Kagumi had done something to him, however, as even his own attempts at either sign language, writing, or even vocalizing what actually happened failed him. It was like he couldn't even mutter a word regarding the name, or being Kagumi Satsuki. Even the Yamanaka that did his mental evaluation reported seeing a group of rogue nins attacking his squad. And to be honest, that frightened him a bit. He had information that the Hokage had to hear, and he couldn't give the information. Gnashing his teeth slightly, Naruto could only look in front of him with a ticked-off expression, his normally calm, cool expression being overwhelmed with the knowledge of a threat, who, while wasn't that far above his own abilities, had a set of skills that would be most troublesome. Looking down towards his right hand, Naruto felt the odd sensation of cool water pouring down his spine as he moved his hand towards the brown-colored door in front of him. Releasing a small relaxed sigh, which also caused his expression to revert into a look of dread, Naruto moved his closed fist forward and with a small bit of strength, knocked on the door. Thud thud thud. Releasing a small sigh of relief, Naruto moved his hand into his pocket before pulling out his apartment key, placing it inside the small lock and twisting. Naruto heard the sound of the lock snapping open before allowing him entry. And just as he opened the door, he came upon the sight of something he wouldn't have expected of. Standing just in front of the door was a somewhat tall teenage girl with long black, slightly spiky at the tips, hair that fell just towards her upper back, her two chin-length bangs passing by her coal-colored eyes and stretching all the way to her chin, easily going past the small grinning visage of the girl as she continued to stare at him. Now, what shocked Naruto wasn't the fact there was a girl standing before him, but the fact that there was a girl standing before him completely naked with her gravity-defying, low C-cup breasts aiming straight at him. Widening his eyes, Naruto only had one thought going through his head. "OSH, Naruto!" screamed the girl happily as she jumped the black-haired, red-eyed shinobi, propelling the two into the apartment hallway where Naruto quickly began to snap his head side to side. Wrapping his arms around the girl's waist, Naruto quickly dashed into the apartment and shut the door, locking it the process before shutting his eyes as he felt the girl in his arms latch onto him by the neck and waist. "Naruto! I haven't seen you for so long. Why have you been avoiding me?" cried the girl, and she rubbed her now tear-ridden face against Naruto's bland-looking and irritated face. "Damn it, Satsuki! I know we're childhood orphanage friends and all, but come on! Ever since you got some training from Crazy Snake Lady you've been like this. I mean, who flashes their friends or anyone who opens the door, huh?" asked Naruto in a childish tone, mentally enjoying the way Satsuki's breasts pushed up against him. "Hey, he's a male teen. Leave him alone, damn it." However, it seemed that his little ramble had gotten himself into more trouble as Satsuki started to choke him with her hug. "Naruto! I only do this to you. And don't call Anko-sensei crazy snake lady. She's the best teacher ever, replied Satsuki, her tone indicating that she was very passionate about her view of her sensei. Naruto destroyed the urge to laugh as with every encounter with the woman he had, even before she apprenticed his friend, did she attempt to kill him or rape him. There was just no reason for it, she just did. Suddenly, Naruto felt his face being pressed against Satsuki's as she gently began to rub her face with his. Why did you avoid me, Naruto? Did you know how hurt I was waiting for you to come home? Sure, I get a few letters from Hokage-sama that holds all of the money you wish to save for the apartment rent and all, but you're never here and you promised to be with me when we were kids. Remember, don't worry, Satsuki-chan. Me and you will just rent an apartment together and become the best ninjas of the universe. So why have you been avoiding me since you graduated? Why, Naruto mumbled Satsuki in a soft tone, causing the black-haired genin in her grip to lower his head slightly in shame. He knew of his promise to his first, and most likely his only, friend when they were kids. But after she had been taken under the wing of Anko Mitarashi, he started to feel uncomfortable about her training, as she would then usually use him as test practice. And to that of regular genin who hadn't even graduated, it was a very scary experience. Although, he had to thank Anko for firmly stating that Satsuki wouldn't be learning any snake jutsus, as she didn't want Satsuki to have any similar connection to that of Orochimaru, something Naruto thought was for the better. Hey, he didn't want to have to wake up to a snake staring at him. He had Satsuki doing that before she got taken as an apprentice, damn it. But he did kind of forget about Satsuki after he began his genin career with Yamato training him as an apprentice, and since he was either staying at Training Field 6 or the hospital from injuries, he never really needed to actually come back to his and Satsuki's apartment, which he used as an excuse to gain more missions. Mentally shaking off his thought, Naruto then began to return the face rubbing with Satsuki, something that the two of them had done as they were children within their orphanage, which was considered weird by the other kids back then, but to the two, it showed their friendship in some sort of twisted way. I'm sorry, Satsuki, I promise to spend more time here. No promises that I will not study anything while I'm at home though. Fair deal? Asked Naruto softly, getting a small grin from Satsuki, who had removed her face from Naruto's own. Fair enough. Can you make dinner? Asked Satsuki with a small twinkle within her cold black eyes, causing Naruto to simply stare into her eyes with his own. You haven't changed in the odd few months I haven't been here, you know, replied Naruto, gaining a small squeal from the girl as she stood up in a hurry, causing her breasts to bounce as she stretched. Naruto will deny being a pervert to his very days, but the sight was something he would never forget, and cherish in his own time, of course. Giving a small grin, Naruto pushed himself off the ground before walking past the still happily stretching near the front of the doorway. Shaking his head at her antics, probably gained from Anko, Naruto moved towards the kitchen with a small grin, seeing as how it was now covered in dirty dishes, some moss, and even what appeared to be filled to the brim bin bags that were still sitting beside the bin box. Now he felt even worse as he remembered that Satsuki was never any good at doing these kinds of things. Oh shit, there was a lot more things she could have screwed up on. Naruto clenched his fist in irritation as he now felt as if he should have never walked back to the apartment at all. It would have saved him from the trap his friend had placed him in. Oh damn the guilt. Raising his hands up, Naruto summoned 10 Kage Bunshin, all at the ready as they knew of the situation. Pointing towards the clones, left to right, Naruto began his orders. Clone 1 dishes. Clone 2 bin. Clone 3 mold. Clone 4 go get fresh food. God knows that Satsuki probably had only fast food for the past 2 or 3 months. Clone 5, check if anything needs to be replaced or repaired. Clone 6, check and clean the toilet. Clone 7, laundry. Clone 8, 9 and 10. General cleaning. Make this place nice and tidy. Spoke Naruto, gaining an affirmative nod from his clones as they dashed towards their individual jobs. And since they weren't using any chakra in any shape or form, they would probably last the duration Naruto needed to have the apartment cleaned and fixed. Hopefully. Releasing a small sigh, Naruto turned his attention towards the front door, only to notice that Satsuki had disappeared. Raising a hand to his head, Naruto moved throughout the apartment towards the only bedroom within the house. Hearing a small shuffling from within, Naruto gave the door a small knock, causing a large thump to be heard, which was then soon followed by a loud groan. Giving a small chuckle, Naruto opened the door with a small smile, completely expecting the room to be a mess. However, he was shocked to find that the room was incredibly neat and tidy, with Satsuki now sitting on the floor with a small lump forming on her head. Releasing another chuckle, Naruto walked towards his friend before taking a look at the bump, absently noticing the gray-colored sweatpants and loose violet-colored singlet that Satsuki had slipped herself into. Naruto gave his friend an internal nod before raising his head up in a small sigh. Seeing as how he doubted Satsuki had any eyes, the only place that was in fact clean and neat was the bedroom surprisingly. So, using his control of water nature chakra, which was the most basic form, Naruto moved his right hand up towards the bump and gently placed it down, making sure to limit the amount of pain that simply gesture would present. Once his hand was on Satsuki's head, Naruto began to chakra his chakra nature into water, causing his hand to become slightly encased within a small amount of cool blue water-like essence. It wasn't long for the bruise to begin to lose its shape and form before disappearing completely from his friend's head, much to her happiness, as she gave Naruto a massive grin. Thank you, Naruto. spoke Satsuki, giving the black-haired teen a small wink before rushing off towards the living room, causing the black-haired teen to release a small sigh of misery as he slowly began to walk out of the room, absent-mindedly noticing that Satsuki had barely changed anything since he had been here last, which had been well over a few months. Giving the room a quick once-over, Naruto left, making sure to shut the door on his way out. The sound of the door clicking into place alerted Naruto that the door had been closed behind him. Walking back into the dinner room, Naruto came upon the sight of Satsuki simply staring at him with a large smile, something that made Naruto slightly uneasy due to how unnatural it had appeared as. His worry soon disappeared however, as he spotted a bowl of ramen sitting behind her. Giving a small twitch from his right eye, Naruto turned to his left where he saw one of his clones, who he remembered to send out for food, before releasing a small sigh. Just please tell me that you got actual food along with the ramen? Last time I almost starved to death in the forest, remember? Asked Naruto, gaining a small embarrassed chuckle from his clone as he disappeared in a pool of smoke, giving Naruto all of his memories. Releasing a small sigh of relief, since his clone actually completed his task, Naruto turned his attention back to his friend, only to widen his eyes slightly at the now empty bowl of ramen sitting in front of her at the dinner table. Dropping a small chuckle, Naruto walked up to his childhood friend before rubbing her head once more in an affectionate way. Just hanging out with his friend brought back a few memories of his time with her. Although he never actually forgot her, he didn't actually notice the lack of joy he had gotten from being around her as he was training, and because of that, he never really felt all that happy hanging out with his friend, especially after she had gotten training from Enko Midarashi as an apprentice a month before Genin graduation. Relishing the warmth that had appeared within his chest, Naruto couldn't help but forget about his supposed recovery period that the hospital had placed on him, which had basically stopped him from attempting any missions for a few days. Removing his hand from Satsuki's head, Naruto moved his way to the couch before plopping himself down, his head laying down on the couch's deep brown headrest as he looked up towards the cream-colored ceiling. I think I forgot how comfortable this couch was when I actually came home from going out before being a genin, muttered Naruto in a hushed tone, only getting a small giggle from the dinner table. Of course you would remember the couch. We used to play mommy and daddy when we first got the apartment. I remember I would always send you to the couch if you were being a mean, replied Satsuki as she moved herself to the couch before hopping onto Naruto's unprotected form, much to his brief wince of pain as Satsuki landed her elbow onto his stomach. Looking towards Satsuki with a grin, Naruto moved his head up to her ear before blowing some wind into it, causing the black-haired girl on him to jump slightly, allowing him to roll of the couch and avoid being trapped beneath her. Pushing himself off the couch, Naruto gave the now face-planting Satsuki a small grin before standing up and slightly leaning on the small coffee table that was in front of the couch. Scratching his head slightly with his right hand, Naruto realized one crucial fact about his current predicament. Hey Satsuki, I just realized this, but what happened to my single-sized bed that was tucked into the corner of the bedroom? Asked Naruto. A vivid image of his and Satsuki's old bedroom popped into his head for a moment, indicating a missing single-sized bed that he had been sleeping on over the course of the years. Turning his head slightly towards Satsuki, Naruto couldn't help but release a small deadpan stare as he came upon the sight of a puppy-eyed Satsuki. Seeing the puppy-eyed look, Naruto simply stared towards Satsuki. You jumped on it, and it broke, right? Asked Naruto in a deadpan tone, getting a small nod from the puppy-eyed Satsuki. Shaking his head, Naruto released a small sigh once more. So I guess I'm sleeping on the couch until I buy a new bed. Oh well, do you have an? Nope, spoke Satsuki, cutting off Naruto from his previous outspoken thoughts. Raising an eyebrow, Naruto seemed curious as to what Satsuki's plan was until he widened his eyes in fear. Satsuki, I'm sorry for not coming back home for a few months, but that doesn't mean you should have me sleep on the floor. Please. I'll do anything for the couch, begged Naruto, his normally cool calm facade smashing into bits as his mind went over towards the hospital's other condition. Naruto is not allowed to be spotted in any training ground, otherwise we will have to hold him in the hospital until his recovery period is over. Should he be found in any training ground, let both the Hokage and us know. Naruto had no clue who the doctor was speaking to, since he was in fact listening on in the conversation through the door. Funny thing that the doctors never told him that bit of knowledge when they released him. They were just trying to set him up the teams. However, before Naruto could continue in his line of thought, a sudden hand clamping onto his cheek alerted him to the sudden shift of movement revolving around him being dragged by his friend in a near effortless fashion, something that surprised Naruto quite a bit. Suddenly, Naruto felt himself being flung into the air for a moment before landing on something soft. Turning his head slightly, Naruto came to the sight of a gray-colored blanket and pillow. It wasn't a moment later did Naruto suddenly feel what was likely to be Satsuki's bed caving inward slightly towards the center of the bed, causing him to turn his attention towards the source, which was of course simply Satsuki sitting in the middle of the bed with a massive grin on her face. Nope. You're sleeping with me like when we were kids. You got that, Naruto? Exclaimed Satsuki with a megawatt smile, causing the red-eyed teen to blush slightly at the mention of them being kids and sleeping. After all, he did used to sleep with Satsuki as a kid and there was a lot of cuddling involved. Yeah, he still remembered all of that. Looking up towards the cream-colored ceiling once more, Naruto could only make out a single prayer. Kami, I don't know whether to hate or love you. Fire release. Great fireball technique. I take it back, Kami. I hate you, thought Naruto with a twitch as he walked down the street with an overly happy Satsuki dragging him along by the arm, much to the amusement of the civilians watching. Since waking up a few hours ago, Naruto had been subjected to both a glomp and a rape attempt, via Anko, who had appeared to pick Satsuki up for training. However, considering that he himself hadn't seen Satsuki for a while, with Satsuki also not being able to see him, Anko decided to forego the training for today so that Satsuki could spend the day with him. And by spending the day, Anko meant the one that involved the bed and touching. Thankfully, however, it seemed that Satsuki did mature a bit as she declined Anko's offer of a privacy seal she had with her. Why Anko would carry a privacy seal with her, Naruto didn't, or rather, wouldn't, like to know. Yep, he was happy being clueless, thank you very much. But because of that situation, Naruto now found himself within another, that being Satsuki actually wanted to purchase the apartment rather than rent it further, something Naruto asked her about why she wanted to purchase it now. She apparently managed to get his mission stat sheet and his bank account details while he was having a shower, which he had replaced via clones as he slept. He really was thankful that his clones had done all the cleaning rather than him. The things his clones saw owed the shivers that rang along his spine. Shaking his head, Naruto came upon the sight of another somewhat tall building before releasing a small tear from his eyes. The small tear was for all the fortune he was going to lose due to Satsuki. Why him, Kami? Why? Chuckling slightly from his last thought, Naruto came upon the sight of a somewhat round man who looked like he was in his early 30s, something that Naruto found rather stereotypical as he began to notice that there was a lot of the same person, not in looks, but in just about everything else like social status, jobs and even daily life, and that weirded him out slightly as he never realized how bland some people within Konoha were. Naruto! Are you sure it's this way? Asked Satsuki, now standing in front of the slightly startled Naruto, as he finally got his bearings back before sending the slightly shorter Satsuki a small narrowed look. Weren't you the one dragging me around, Satsuki? Asked Naruto with a small smirk building onto his face as Satsuki gave him a small glare and huff before walking ahead once more, causing the black-haired teen to give a small whisper-like chuckle. That was of course before he noticed something. That something had to be Satsuki decked out in something a chunin would wear, which was basically similar to his normal shinobi garb, only in the right colors. Catching up to Satsuki, Naruto pulled himself beside her before catching her eyes with his own. Hey Satsuki, why are you wearing your shinobi garb? Wasn't the reason you forced me to wear my civilian garb so that we could hang out? Asked Naruto curiously, getting a small cheeky grin from Satsuki as she pointed towards him. Following her finger, Naruto glanced down to his own clothing before noticing something. His cloth had a small flicker coming off it. Widening his eyes, Naruto raised his fingers into the kai, or release hand sign before surging his chakra through his body. Genjutsu, thought Naruto in a small panic before shattering the illusion of what he thought was his civilian garb, being a simple black t-shirt with an orange flame within the center of the chest, along with long black baggy pants and his regular black shinobi sandals. However, as soon as the genjutsu got destroyed, Naruto came upon the sight of his shinobi garb. Somehow he also had his pouches attached to his legs and waist. Seriously, how did he manage that and not realize he was in a genjutsu? Turning his head slightly, Naruto caught sight of Satsuki's devilish grin. How? Asked Naruto, his voice slightly stuttering as he was surprised Satsuki managed to pull a genjutsu off on him without his notice. Fair enough, it wasn't directly affecting him, but it was still affecting his surroundings and he didn't notice. Well, add genjutsu practice to the list of things to learn. Not telling, was Satsuki's reply before gripping Naruto's hand within her own, her devilish grin still on display for the whole world to see, and Naruto was now slightly shaking in fear from his friend. Just what in the blue hell did Anko do to his childhood friend, damn it? It was then that Naruto realized something as his mind continued to drift during his time with Satsuki. Both he and Satsuki were now standing in what appeared to be a training ground that was devoid of any life aside from the trees surrounding it. Moving his head around, Naruto almost didn't notice the small spark of killing intent appearing towards his left. Turning his head slightly, Naruto widened his eyes in shock as he saw Satsuki, now bearing a kunai in a reverse grip, swiping her hand at his chest and arm. Narrowing his eyes slightly, Naruto spun into a crouch, sending his left leg out into a spinning sweep in an attempt to swipe Satsuki's feet from underneath her. However, it seemed Naruto hadn't given Satsuki any credit as she simply hopped slightly into the air and threw the kunai within her hand towards Naruto's form. Still in a mid-swing, Naruto used his hands that were helping him swing via the crouching position he was in to push himself into the air, allowing the kunai to make a soft thump into the soft grass below. It was because he focused on the kunai that he didn't see the mid-air kick landing straight across his face, sending him sailing through the ground before finally catching himself in a somewhat crouched position. Gritting his teeth, Naruto narrowed his eyes. Satsuki, what are you really narrow? Did you forget how our relationship worked? Asked Satsuki, a grinning face of pure evil still residing upon her face as her cold black eyes gazed into his own red ones. It was at this moment that Naruto remembered something vital. Satsuki and his childhood revolved around one thing aside from being the best of friends, and that was being the better shinobi. Even when they were kids and all, the two of them promised that they would be the strongest shinobi in the universe, making sure to always match each other as they grew up, even when they were playing simple games like chase or even hide-and-seek, ninja variant. However, as the years went, it became more and more difficult for Naruto to keep up with Satsuki, who seemed to have an unnatural ability in anything related to shinobi, including training. This was one of the reasons for his determination within his own training, something that seemed to fade as she had been taken as an apprentice a month before the final genin graduation test his class had held. But it was then that Naruto felt something warm within his chest as he stared down his current opponent. What was he feeling exactly? He couldn't have been happy that he was going through what he did as a child with Satsuki, right? But if that was true, why was he getting so excited? Why was his blood surging and pumping? Why was his muscles compacting in anticipation? He knew the answer, but didn't bother to say it as Naruto dashed forwards, his eyes set on his childhood friend who copied his own movement, sending the two charging towards each other at breakneck speeds. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto jumped slightly into a flying kick, sending him sailing over Satsuki as she did a simple duck before twisting around and sending a kick to the still airborne Naruto, causing the black-haired teen to quickly maneuver himself from his position, allowing him to use the kick Satsuki sent towards him as a form of springboard to push himself off of. Sending himself into the air once more, Naruto quickly began to go through hand signs before raising a single hand towards his mouth. Water release, water bullet, shouted Naruto as her shot a continuous stream of water straight towards Satsuki, who simply widened her eyes in slight shock before slamming her hands onto the ground. Earth release, earth shore return, Satsuki shouted in return, her jutsu in turn creating an earth-like wall to cover her frame. Seeing as how his water attack hadn't worked, Naruto grit his teeth slightly before landing into a crouch before pushing himself off the ground with a chakra-enhanced leap, sending him straight towards the earth wall. Whipping his wrists, Naruto watched as his wrist-mounted wires sent themselves around the earth wall before swinging themselves all the way around a few times before finally sticking to each other as they completed their rotation. Giving a grin, Naruto couldn't help but give a cheeky laugh at the sound of a small ouch appearing on the other side of the wall. "Do you surrender, Satsuki-chan?" asked Naruto in a cheeky tone, only to receive silence in return. Something wasn't right, and Naruto knew what it was when he felt the ground beneath him slightly begin to shake before a set of hands shot out of the ground, attempting to drag him into the earth. Jumping just before the hands could grasp his ankles, Naruto attempted to gain some distance from where Satsuki was now emerging from. However, to his slightly shock, he realized that he couldn't escape. Why couldn't he gain some distance away from Satsuki? Naruto could only widen his eyes as he trailed his two red orbs towards his wrists where the wires were still connected to the slab of earth still standing. Shit, thought Naruto with irritation as he began to fall towards the ground once more. However, his fall was stopped prematurely as he felt something collide with his body, sending it back into the air, only to then feel a hand grasped around the back of his neck along with a pair of lips breathing besides his right ear. "Iwan don't I na are you Takun?" asked Satsuki with a grin planted onto her face as the two of them were plummeting towards the ground with Naruto still restricted by his wires. Giving a small glare towards his wires, Naruto began to surge his wires with unrefined wind chakra, causing the wires to rip and cut themselves apart, allowing Naruto his freedom from his own weapons. Seeing as his hands were now free from their binds, Naruto quickly threw his left wrist out, sending another stream of wires from his wrist towards a tree, or he would have had Satsuki had not gripped his left arm and placed it behind his back with a small chuckle. "You still haven't given up, Nair," mumbled Satsuki, not minding the still rapidly approaching ground. Clenching his teeth at the pain his arm was going through, Naruto rammed his head backwards, sending the back of his skull crashing into Satsuki's nose, causing the woman riding him to snap her own head backwards in a jerking fashion. Seeing as how he now had some more leeway, Naruto quickly spun himself before throwing his right wrist out towards the trees, causing the two plummeting shinobi to be sent into a swing as the wire wrapped around the tree with little to no effort on its part. Swinging from the tree, Naruto could feel a sense of foreboding before widening his eyes as he physically felt Satsuki surge her chakra. "Lightning release, lightning rod," shouted Satsuki, sending a torrent of electricity into Naruto's body, causing him to lose control of his chakra and wire, sending the two shinobi into the ground with Naruto in a dead drop and Satsuki in a small distance skid. Gritting his teeth, Naruto couldn't hold back the random spasm his body was going through as the lightning techniques slowly began to surge out of his body. Tilting his head as much as possible, Naruto came upon the sight of Satsuki now slowly walking towards him with her devilish grin on her face. Oh, just the image of the face made him a tad irritated, as he slowly felt his body begin to heal itself. "She won't let me live this down if I lose again, gotta get her talking for my body to recover enough to move again," thought Naruto with a slightly narrowed gaze as multiple ideas rang through his head. Eventually, the only thing Naruto could think of wasn't all that great. Gritting his teeth, Naruto began to push against the ground beneath him in a desperate attempt to push himself up to continue his battle against his friend. However, with the lightning nature still trailing within his body causing random surges of pain, there wasn't much he could do. Unless, thought Naruto with a grin before using his own chakra to pour into the ground, which in doing so also brought the lightning-infused chakra out of his system and into the ground in a grounding type of idea. Luckily it seemed to work as Naruto felt his body become more responsive, but it seemed that it was a bit late as he felt Satsuki place her sandal on his back before pushing it down, forcing him onto the ground once more. Tilting his head slightly, Naruto caught sight of the smiling face of Satsuki once more before tilting his head back down towards the ground. Grinning slightly, Satsuki couldn't help but mentally scream in joy at beating her longtime friend once more. Sure, when they were kids she always won, but after the battle between the two even she had to admit that it was a close match, which made the win feel all the better. Keeping her foot in place, Satsuki couldn't stop the slightly arrogant tone from appearing within her voice, much to the down Naruto's irritation. Do you surrender, Naruto-kun? I'll admit you have gotten a bit better. Maybe in a few years you could match me if I stop training altogether, you know. However, before Satsuki could finish her sentence, the body beneath her feet disappeared in a burst of wind, causing the black-haired woman to lose her balance slightly before gaining a painful kick to the ribs, sending her against the trees that surrounded her. Feeling her back smash against the hard oak of the tree, Satsuki quickly bit her lip to stop the small scream of pain that attempted to leave her throat before falling down to the ground on her side. Quickly trying to stand up, Satsuki stopped any movement as soon as she felt a cold metal-like object placed underneath her throat. Sending her view up slightly, the sight of Naruto giving a small grin began to photograph itself into her memory before a small surge of anger flown through her body before disappearing and replacing itself with irritation. I win, muttered Naruto softly before removing the kunai from his friend's through and helping her up, making sure to not irritate the girl further, as he slowly began to walk with Satsuki pouting along the way. It wasn't long before Naruto found himself back towards his apartment with Satsuki now walking ahead of him in a slight form of irritation as she simply entered the apartment and headed for the shower, much to Naruto's internal laughter. Mentally calming himself down from his laughter, Naruto moved towards the couch before plopping himself down with a grin. After all, why wouldn't he be grinning? He had just beaten someone he had been fighting against for years. And best of all, he got to enjoy. I win, Naruto-kun. Suddenly Naruto's eyes widened themselves as he sat on his couch. Did he just hear someone whispering that they won in something? But if he did, then who did it? I win, Naruto-kun. Now wake up already. Wake up already? What was the voice on about? Gritting his teeth, Naruto looked around the room once more before a small crack appeared within the walls before it slowly began to disintegrate, revealing pure darkness beneath the oak-like wood. What the genjutsu? Shouted Naruto mentally as he clamped his canine tooth down onto his lip, causing blood to spill itself down his lips as Naruto's surroundings began to break apart, leaving the black-haired teen in pure darkness with only a pair of red shining lights in a far distance. What in the world? Thought Naruto with a narrowed gaze before shutting his eyes altogether as a massive blast of pure light rang through the darkness. You can open your eyes now, Naruto-kun. Snapping his eyes open slightly in a blinking fashion, Naruto came upon the clear sight of Satsuki's grinning face before moving his eyes around, identifying them to be within their apartment. What happened? Asked Naruto curiously, only getting a small giggle from Satsuki as she stroked Naruto's black hair gently. I won, Naruto-kun, replied Satsuki, her voice bare of anything other than a small amount of pride as she continued to stroke Naruto's hair. Naruto could only pout at the reply slightly before sitting himself up, finally realizing that he was laying down on top of Satsuki's lap within their bedroom before stretching his neck and back. Oh well, so when did you get me within the genjutsu? Hell, how did you get me without me noticing? Asked Naruto in a bland tone, slightly sore over his lose via genjutsu, which now definitely placed itself on Naruto's to-train list, which was currently occupied by his Fuinjutsu theory application along with team formations and the like. Hearing a chuckle, Naruto returned his complete attention back towards Satsuki, who simply gave a small smile and wink. I'm not telling, was Satsuki's reply, causing the black-haired teen to pout slightly before letting his head fall back onto Satsuki's lap, causing the black-haired girl to widen her eyes in embarrassment. WWWWH, what are you doing, Naru? Shouted Satsuki in an embarrassed tone, causing the teen on her lap to send a mock blink in return. You were fine with me waking up on your lap, but not with me being awake and laying down on your lap? Asked Naruto in curiosity, only to gain a small bonk on the head from Satsuki as her face developed a full red blush, much to the teen's internal amusement. Why yeah. So what? Shouted Satsuki in return, only getting a small chuckle from Naruto as he simply closed his eyes. Oh well, you did offer, you know, muttered Naruto in reply, causing the teen he was laying on to develop a newer shade of bright red before passing out with a sigh. Giving a small grin, Naruto opened his eyes before quietly getting off the bed, making sure to place Satsuki under the blankets before walking out towards the front door. However, just as he was about to reach out for the door, the sound of fist hitting would range through the apartment, waking up the now sleeping Satsuki, who jumped out of the bed and quickly appeared next to Naruto, who was now slightly irritated from the fact that he had just placed Satsuki under the bed covers. Hearing the knocking continue, Naruto shook his head before gripping onto the door handle. Yes. 1 second, Yamato-sensei? Asked Naruto in a curious tone as he stared towards his old sensei, who was simply standing there with a small piece of paper. Giving a smile, Yamato gave his former student a small wave. Hello Naruto, mind if I come in? The chunin exams? What about them? Asked Naruto as he absent-mindedly scratched the back of his head in curiosity. I mean, it had been a while since anyone's made a comment about the chunin exams for a while, so his sensei appearing out of nowhere and wanting to talk about it seemed kinda odd for him. Yamato took a small sip of the cup in front of him, internally thankful to Satsuki, who he had just met a few moments prior when he had entered his students, and apparently Satsuki's home. Yes. Anyway, Naruto. About the chunin exams, are you sure you want to compete within them all by yourself? I know it's rather sudden that I appeared now and am telling you this when I had previously fully supported you with the chunin exam endeavor, but while I have been doing some certain tasks, I find myself thinking that it would benefit you to miss out the current exam and wait 6 months for the next exams. The competition is a lot different from a regular exam, muttered Yamato in a quiet tone as he stared towards his student with a serious gaze. Raising an eyebrow, Naruto tilted his head slightly. What do you mean it's a lot different from a regular exam? I know that the chunin exams are all different each time they are held, but from the way you're saying the exam being different, I'm curious as to what you mean, sensei, replied Naruto in a curious tone, already formulating possible answers from his own head. However, before Yamato could answer the young teen, it seemed that Satsuki had beaten him to the punch as she threw her arms around Naruto's neck in a joyful fashion. What he means, Naru, is that this year there will be heaps of tough opponents, and he isn't sure that working all alone for the exams is a good idea, so why don't you join me and my friends group? We're short one member and Sasame is a stick in the mud sometimes, and I'm sure with both me and you there we can finally get the stick up her ass to release itself from her. What do you say? Asked Satsuki with a grin as she rubbed her cheek against Naruto's own, causing Yamato to send his student a small cheeky grin, which was returned with a blank deadpan stare from Naruto as he returned his focus onto his once teacher. So what you're saying is that with all these strong opponents I shouldn't go at this all alone and instead find a group that I could join to take the exams, Yamato-sensei? Asked Naruto in a somewhat serious tone, gaining a small but stiff nod from Yamato as he sat across from his previous student. It's as your friend there said, Naruto. This chunin exam is somewhat different from a usual one. In fact, to be frank, I would prefer you to miss the exams completely due to the risk of the exam, but I know you wouldn't do that, so I would like for you to at least join another squad. And seeing as how your friend there offered, it would just make it a little bit easier on me to know that you have people to watch your back. Can you do that for me, Naruto? Asked Yamato in a sincere tone, causing the black-haired ninja to nod his head slightly before giving a small thumbs up to his former teacher. Sure, Yamato-sensei, I guess I'll join a team for the chunin exams. Thanks for the little bout of information, but out of curiosity, who is likely to be joining the chunin exams to get you so spooked? Asked Naruto once more, drawing Satsuki's attention from Naruto's cheek to Yamato as he simply sat within his seat in a thinking position. It wasn't long, however, before Yamato began to release a small sigh and look towards his old student. I'm sorry to say, but I can't reveal the information to you, Naruto. This was just a small heads up to help you when the time came for the chunin exams. Either way, I believe it's my time to leave. I have a few errands to finish up before the day ends. Once more, thank you for listening to my concerns, Naruto, replied Yamato with a small smile, which had gained him one in return from both Naruto and Satsuki, who had returned to rubbing her cheeky slightly against her friend's one, something which had barely fazed Naruto as he didn't even bother resisting his friend's touch. Standing up and giving his student a small wave, Yamato disappeared within a cloud of smoke, something that irritated Naruto as he watched some leaves also fall onto the floor where his sensei once was. Shaking his head slightly, Naruto turned his attention towards his friend, who had continued her rubbing, before clearing his throat slightly. So Satsuki, I guess I'm thankful for the invitation you had given me, but I am curious as to how you have another teammate, as I was sure Anko had only apprenticed you, so who is the other member you talked about? Questioned Naruto with a tilt of his head, only to lean his head back slightly as Satsuki moved her face in front of his own before letting out a large grin. Oh, Sasame-chan and I go way back about 3 months or so ago. It was during a mission that both Sasame and I had been assigned to that I got to know her, and for some reason we just seemed to click as friends, and since then, whenever I'm not with my sensei I usually hang out with her due to a certain someone Small Glare who decided to forget about his childhood cuddle buddy and focus on training himself without even seeing me once. But back on course, I and Satsuki eventually became an unofficial team dubbed Ravens due to our black hair. Yeah, don't ask why or who came up with that title, even I don't know who it was, replied Satsuki with a small blush as she idly remembered some genin asking them for a raven summoning contract, since he thought that their team name actually stood for their summons. Yeah, that genin was very disappointed when he was told exactly why they were called ravens as their team name. As Satsuki came to a finish, Naruto could only hold back his slowly forming grin as he listened towards Satsuki's tale about her and Sasame and their team formation. Even he had to admit that it was quite hilarious due to the fact that everything within the story just seemed to follow after each other like events within a game. Oh well, he could worry about that later as he pushed himself up, which also brought Satsuki into a stand as she had continued to cling onto his neck during their entire talk. Shaking off the slight bit of irritation from Satsuki's clinginess, Naruto began to walk towards the front of their apartment before turning his head slightly towards Satsuki. So where would Sasame be exactly? I mean, I should get to know my teammates, right? Asked Naruto in a soft tone, getting a small hum from Satsuki as she nodded her head in agreement. You do have a good point, Naru. Okay, Sasame-chan would most likely be at Ichiraku Ramen, replied Satsuki, causing the black-haired teen to stare blankly at his companion. Do you seriously believe me to fall for your someone important is at Ichiraku's and we have to quickly get there? Schemes Satsuki? I mean, you do realize that you had constantly did that to me as a kid, so why would I fall for it again as a more mature teen? Asked Naruto rhetorically, causing his passenger to blink in confusion. But she probably is there, Naru, you just have to trust me on this, returned Satsuki, causing the black-haired teen to release a small sigh before walking towards Ichiraku's, not even bothering to question Satsuki any further. Ichiraku-stan, did you really need to ride on my back the entire trip? I had thought that you would have gotten off at some point on the trip, which was the reason why I had left you riding on my back. Spoke Naruto, his tone in a slightly bland tone as he stared towards the infamous Ichiraku ramen shack, said to feed those of legends and gods. Yeah, okay, you got him when he knew that was complete and utter bull. But some had indeed believed that as the famous fourth Hokage and his family regularly ate out in the very shack he was heading towards. Oh well, whatever floats people's boats. Shaking his head slightly, Naruto returned to the world of the living as he tilted his head up slightly before releasing a small sigh. Is why I didn't hop off your back. Understand now, Naru? Finished Satsuki with a proud tone easily being shown off as she laid her chin down on the top of Naruto's head with a grin. Did you say something, Satsuki? Asked Naruto in a curious tone. Suddenly, it seemed as if time itself had stopped itself as the world seemed to freeze into a picture. The once loud voices of merchants and shop owners went silent, children's laughter screeched to a halt. And Satsuki? She simply stared towards Naruto as if he confessed to destroying the world with 100% conviction. I have a son! Came out a random shout towards the furthest side of the village. Blinking at the odd voice, Naruto turned his attention back towards Satsuki before tilting his head once more. What? Asked Naruto, causing Satsuki to snap herself out of her shocked state. Giving the black-haired teen a glare, Satsuki wrapped her arms around Naruto before biting down on his ear, causing the teen to let out a small girlish squeal as he attempted to get Satsuki off his ear without it being yanked off. Thankfully for Naruto, his distraction came from a bored-sounding voice towards his right. Satsuki, why are you biting someone's ear off? Asked the bored tone, causing both Naruto and Satsuki to turn their heads towards the voice's origin. It was safe to say that Naruto was slightly shocked as he came upon the sight of who he supposed was Satsuki's teammate Sasame. The teenage girl herself was somewhat tall, just being under his own height by an inch or two. She, like both he and his friend, had black flowing-like hair that reached just above her hips along with two long bangs that reached her collarbones, easily passing the two cobalt blue eyes that had a slight shine to them. Although the bored look Sasame did show off did put the shine down slightly. Forgetting that Satsuki was still strangling him and biting his ear, Naruto gave the raven-haired woman in front of him a small wave and grin. Hey there. Name's Naruto. Satsuki-chan here invited me to join your chunin exam group next month, so yeah, muttered Naruto softly towards the end, his initial thoughts trailing off at the sight of Sasame's bored-looking stare. A few seconds later, however, Naruto felt much more freaked out slightly as Sasame moved her face to stare at him from a few centimeters apart. And when she did, Naruto couldn't help but imagine a lioness judging whether or not to either eat its current prey, or leave it alone to live another day. Oh god, this chick's stare was scary. However, Naruto soon let out a sigh of relief when he watched as Satsuki, who had finally stopped biting his ear, let out a small slap on the top of Sasame's head, causing the raven-haired woman to let up on her blank stare. Satsuki might have not realized this, but Naruto was now willing to have sex with her if she would request it right then and there. Good thing Naruto kept that within his head, otherwise he might actually have been raped. So what you think, Sasame-chan? Is Naru good enough to join? Asked Satsuki as her head laid against Naruto's shoulder with a grin, causing the now slightly less scary Ravenet to nod. Yes, he will do, I suppose, but you know what that means now, right? Asked Sasame, gaining a nod from Satsuki as she rubbed her cheek against Naruto's own before moving her head towards Naruto's ear. Team training was the mutter Satsuki whispered into Naruto's ear, causing the red-eyed teen to tilt his head slightly in confusion. Training? Naru! Can you please get me the salt from the cupboard? Naruto-san, I also need the salt. Please give it to me first. No! Me first, Naru. Naruto-san, I am sure you would give it to me first, wouldn't you? After all, I am a guest. Naru! Naruto-san, shut up, damn it, and let me eat my own ramen! Screamed Naruto with a massive twitch mark floating above his brow, his eyes shaking in irritation as he quickly summoned two Kage Bunshin to fulfill the demand of his two friends' needs. It had been over a month and a few weeks since he had met Sasame, and only a bit more since he reunited with Satsuki in his apartment, which he hadn't returned to for over a few months prior to his becoming of Genin and member of Squad 11, which had now officially gained 2 new members along with their new sensei, Brat. Get me some sweet soy sauce, gazing, damn it! Shouted a voice towards his left, causing the already existing twitch to grow in size as Naruto gave a small pointed glare towards the purple-haired jonin by the name of Anko Midarashi, Satsuki's personal jonin, who had also been training Sasame when she had time. During his month period, Naruto, Sasame and Satsuki had become an official team in the way that they were now squad members, with Anko being their jonin sensei who would oversee them in their missions unless requested otherwise by the Hokage. During his new team's formation, Naruto had been placed within many life or death situations revolving around his female companions, who had taken to using him as their practice dummy whenever they were learning anything. This included Anko if she learned anything she wanted to practice. And for what reason? Simple, they found out his regeneration/healing factor. How? He didn't know, but he did have a slight idea revolving around Anko asking around about his abilities, which she didn't help improve, as she stated a genin is defined by their own hard work. So I won't be training you, only my apprentice, before also taking on Sasame as an official apprentice, basically telling him to learn at his own rate when not learning team exercises. And he was somewhat thankful for that, as he was able to continue to work on his own rate, while getting a few tips from the dango-loving Jonin, who just gave him a nod for working on his own and without much help. But he does have to admit, now having a team which he could work with, it made learning formations, battle tactics, and even creating solutions to possible future situations all the more easier on him, as he now had 3 people who all had different opinions and thoughts. Fair enough, one of them was Satsuki, but still she was a crazy tactical thinker apparently, one who might even one day beat a Nara clan member at the rate she's going somehow. So brats, you ready for the chunin exams tomorrow? Asked their bubbly purple-haired sensei as she picked her teeth with a dango stick, much to Naruto's irritation as he watched their sensei flick bits of food that had been stuck within her teeth onto his face, much to his obvious irritation. However, that seemed to make the purple-haired teacher a lot happier, as she sent him a wide amused grin, with Satsuki and Sasame also letting out a few muffled chuckles from their seats. One might say this was a perfect opportunity to use a famous line from the Nara clan members, and it was indeed the perfect line for the situation Naruto found himself in. Troublesome, Naruto thought mentally before wiping off the flicked food bits off his face before sending a small glance towards his supposed guest Sasame, who had taken to living with himself and Satsuki once she found out that both he and Satsuki now owned their apartment, which in turn caused his sleeping arrangements to be somewhat embarrassing, as he now had to sleep with the sounds of Satsuki and Sasame talking to each other for hours on end, along with giggling creepily into the night before he could sleep. However, aside from the whole creepy sleep thing the two had going on for them, live was a bit more fun from his point of view. I mean, sure, he knew that his training still occupied most of his time, which was the only reason why he had managed to complete both his genjutsu books, along with his poison and trap-making books, something Anko had personally applauded before dragging him off to the forest of death and leaving him in the center for him to learn how to use his newfound skills to survive in the wilderness. Well, that's what she said anyway, as when Naruto returned from the forest he found out that Anko had a house party for her 2 apprentices while also inviting a good chunk of her friends to celebrate with them. However, Naruto will admit it was funny watching a load of Jonin, namely the higher tier ones like Kakashi Hatake and Guy, walk out with a massive wobble as they fought to stand straight. But what Naruto didn't find fun was Anko using his bank account, which Satsuki had given to her, to purchase everything for the party. It took him most of the month to regain the lost amount, and that was with him using his Kage Bunshin to speed up the D and low C-rank missions that he managed to attain from the Hokage, who had a knowing look on his face if the small, sorry smile told him anything. Scratching the back of his head slightly, Naruto gave Anko a small nod. Yeah, I think I'm all set for the chunin exams. What about you two, Satsuki, Sasame? Asked Naruto in a curious tone as he stood up and walked towards the bin before placing his bowl of instant ramen inside the bin and walking back towards his seat. Intent on waiting for both Satsuki and Sasame to finish their food, Anko had already finished if the small Konoha emblem, created by a large amount of dango sticks, on the wall told him anything. Satsuki gave Naruto a massive grin and thumbs up while Sasame gave him a bored look. I don't know why you feel as if you're ready, Naruto-san. I mean, both me and Satsuki are stronger than you, and we have proved it over multiple occasions, replied Sasame as she gained a small grin on her face as Naruto let out a small tch from his mouth as he looked away from Sasame. By both stronger than me, do you mean when the two of you work together to double team me on every sparring session we have as a team? Or do you simply think that when we spar you think the loser is the one on top of the winner? If that's what you think a loser is, then you must be a uke, right, Sasame? Asked Naruto with a cheeky grin on his face that simply sprouted evil to all those who looked at him. However, it seemed that his choice of words managed to cause Sasame to explode in a deep shade of red as the usually bored look on her face was swapped with an expression of embarrassment and anger, much to the amusement of Naruto as he slowly widened his grin as the seconds went by. Putting a sorry face, Naruto couldn't help but lean closer towards Sasame. Ah, did I hurt big bad Sasame-chan? Oh, woe is me, I cannot live with myself now. I know. Let's dress Sasame in pink girly cloths. That should help her recover, shouted Naruto in a very childish voice, causing the already red Sasame to turn into an even deeper shade of red before launching Naruto across the room with a fist to the face. Ha 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 ha, classic Sasame-chan. Laughed Anko with tears streaming down her face as she slammed her fist onto the wooden table in the living room with Satsuki poking Naruto's down form with a stick that she magically found within the house. However, it seems that Sasame wasn't done there as she walked over towards Naruto's still knocked out body before grabbing his ankle and dragging him off towards the bathroom, where she then locked the door, the audible click being heard from all the members within the house before a sound of evil chuckles rang from the room, causing both Satsuki and Anko to look at each other with a startled expression before simply leaving the room. Let it be known that Satsuki hadn't spotted Naruto within there in Sasame's room when she had returned. although the sound of some sort of whine was heard from the bathroom. The next day, Naruto. Come on, it doesn't look that bad. Nudged Satsuki as both she and Sasame, who had a very cat-like grin on her face, walked beside their male companion, who had a full headgear on his head, only leaving his eyes clear for him to see. I don't care. I ain't taking this cloth off, muttered Naruto in an irritated tone as he took a sharp glance towards the still smiling woman to his right. However, it seems that Naruto hadn't had his guard up as Satsuki jumped onto his back and wrapped her arms around his neck. Please, Naruto. I'll let us play the whole Onii-chan and Nei-chan thing you liked to do when we were kids, moaned out Satsuki as she laid her head down on Naruto's shoulder in a begging manner. Naruto simply ignored what Satsuki said and continued on with the walk. However, it was because he didn't answer Sasame took her chance. Turning her head slightly in a slightly evil manner, Sasame looked towards the slight bit of Satsuki's face that was poking past Naruto's shoulder before giving a small chuckle. Oh, is Onii-chan into those kinds of things? I didn't know that our Onii-chan was such a devilish pervert. Isn't that right, Onii-chan? You like little sisters, don't you? Asked Sasame in a high-pitched girlish tone, causing the currently covered Naruto to twitch beneath his headwear, much to Sasame's joy as she continued on her assault, only to walk into someone. That someone had to be a somewhat tall sandy blonde-haired woman with 4 consecutive ponytails along with teal-colored eyes. Trailing his eyes down slightly, Naruto caught the sight of a Suna headband dangling slightly from her neck. Getting the gist of the situation, Naruto scratched the back of his clothed head. Sorry about that. I guess my teammate is more scatterbrained than I thought she was already. My apologies for the accidental mishap. I suppose you're here for the chunin exams? Asked Naruto as his twin red eyes stared towards the woman's own teal-colored ones, which had narrowed slightly as Naruto spoke. Humph, as if I should forgive you for that. One does not simply accidentally walk into someone, especially if they are a ninja, without being a brain-dead piece of trash. Now get out of my way, replied the woman as she went to push her way past Naruto and his squad. However, it seemed the Suna Kunoichi didn't stop there as she then took a glance at Sasame before walking up to her and stared her down, her teal eyes boring into Sasame's cobalt blue ones. Well? Aren't you going to say you're sorry to me? Disrespecting one's elder isn't very bright of you. I mean, it would make sense after all. I did mean the whole brain-dead piece of trash that you are. Seems I was 100% correct in my back-off, spoke Naruto, now standing slightly in front of Sasame, who had a shaking fist by her side which seemed ready and primed to explode. The teal-eyed woman narrowed her eyes in irritation. What did you say to me? Asked the woman, a growl emerging from her throat as she held onto the long black box-like weapon behind her back, causing the covered genin to narrow his own eyes in seriousness. I had already apologized for my teammate, and for you to say all those things to her isn't all that needed. Or are you a genin who needs to bully her way to the top to get by in her life? Asked Naruto with an irritation easily found within his tone of voice as he spoke, causing the woman to gnash her teeth slightly before sending her hand out and grabbing onto Naruto's head mount before pulling it off with a startling rip. Who are you to Hokage-sama? Shouted the woman in shock as she held onto the ripped piece of cloth that once hid Naruto's head from the world. Now with the cloth gone, Satsuki couldn't help but widen her eyes in shock as Naruto now stood with spiky black hair which reached just past his neck along with 2 chin-length bangs reaching his jaw along with a few long spiky pieces of hair reaching just past his forehead, concealing small bits of his black Konoha headband. Much like the 4th Hokage had before his ascendance to Kage, Naruto simply gave the teal-eyed woman a glare, which was then enhanced by his ruby-red eyes that simply bore into her head. However, it seemed that the woman hadn't gotten over her shock to realize that Naruto was indeed not the 4th Hokage, as she simply raised a somewhat shaky finger towards him. Why are you hinged as a G-Genin HH Hokage Sasa-sama? Shouted the woman, drawing in the attention of others within the vicinity, as they all widened their eyes. Look, it's Yandame-sama. Twitch. Wait, doesn't the Hokage have blonde hair and blue eyes? Twitch. He must have dyed his hair and put on contacts. Twitch. But why would he be acting as a genin? Twitch. Duh. It's probably for a super-secret Hokage mission or something. Twitch. Oh yeah. Way to go, Hokage-sama. I'm not Minato Namikaze, dammit. My name's Naruto. Naruto. Shouted Naruto as he shook his fist towards the large crowd surrounding him, much to their shock. However, before anything else could be said or done, Sasame seemed to come back to conscious thought as she hid an evil smirk. Of course, Yandame-sama. You are undercover after all. Shouted Sasame in agreement, causing the surrounding civilians to nod their heads. Yeah, she's right. Good job, Yandame-sama. Do your best, Hokage-sama. Give me your babies, Hokage-sama. Suddenly Naruto dropped to his knees with his head down. I give up, muttered Naruto softly before throwing his hand out and gripping both Sasame's and Satsuki's wrists before disappearing within a shunshin, causing all the surrounding civilians to widen their eyes in amazement. There goes our Hokage. Shouted one of the civilians before walking off, soon followed by the rest as they talked about their legendary Kage and his sudden appearance and disappearance. However, among the original group there still stood the sandy blonde-haired woman as she shook her head in slight shock before narrowing her eyes. Who are you, Naruto Namikaze? thought the woman, as that was the only possible solution to how the black-haired genin's appearance. With a final glare, the woman disappeared within a Win Chun-shin, intent on finding and alerting her brothers about the supposed Namikaze-san academy entrance. Come on, Naruto. It wasn't all that bad, right? Asked Sasame with a grin on her face as she nudged the black-haired genin by his shoulder. Naruto simply gave the blue-eyed woman a blank stare before continuing his way up the stairs with Satsuki following directly behind. Yeah, Nero. It wasn't all that bad, replied Satsuki as she latched onto his arm, much to his internal irritation as she attempted to get a better and longer look at his face with his new haircut provided by one Sasame. How she managed to perfectly get his hair to appear as close to the fourth Hokage's he will never know, but that wasn't really on his mind. The fact that he had a chunin exam right now was. Walking up the second flight of stairs, Naruto came upon the sight of what appeared to be 80-100-ish genin all being blocked entrance from two larger shinobi, who from his memory were the eternal gate guards. How did Naruto know that? Well, for one, the gate guards weren't there when he went for his morning jog, and two, the two shinobi standing in front of the door were the exact same in appearance as the guards, only shorter. Looking up towards the door, Naruto caught sight of the room number being 301, and considering that his old classroom was 301. But there was also another reason for his thoughts, but he couldn't delve into it all that much. Naruto didn't even bother to address anyone as he simply walked past the large group with Satsuki and Sasame following slightly behind with a grin on their face. It seemed after their numerous genjutsu traps they placed on Naruto during the months seemed to make him more conscious of his surroundings. Reaching the top of the third set of steps, Naruto widened his eyes slightly in shock as he saw Anko standing in front of the exam door with a small grin on her face. Great! You're all here. Now I expect you to all show how good I am as a sensei. Got that, Sasame, Satsuki? Asked Anko, getting a nod, a smile from the two while Naruto simply turned his head away from Anko with a cheeky grin on his face as he looked away. However, that didn't stop Anko from grabbing his head in a headlock before unleashing a massive noogie on the teen's head until Anko widened her eyes in slight shock. Yandame began, Anko only getting a blank look from the black-haired teen as he managed to turn his head slightly towards Anko. Chuckling slightly at the blank look, Anko gave her students and their +1 a small wave before disappearing within a plump of smoke. Shaking his head, which had miraculously fixed his hair, Naruto gave his two teammates a small smile before turning his attention back towards the exam door. You ready? Asked Naruto as his back was turned towards the two girls, who each gave a grunt of acknowledgement. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto looked at the doorknob within his hands with a hard glare before releasing a small sigh. Let's go, thought Naruto with a serious expression falling over his face as he twisted the doorknob and pulled the door wide open, exposing the trio to a wave of killer intent. Something that shocked the three slightly before they snickered slightly, causing the entire room attention to focus solely on them. Why are you snickering? Asked one of the chunin candidates, as he glared at the trio before they finally lost their restraint and let out a loud group of laughter. Something that pissed a majority of the large group off as they now pushed their all into their killer intent. Something that managed to increase the laughter of the three as she used each other as supports. And in their ha 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 my ha 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 si sides heard ha ha laughed out Satsuki as she used Naruto as support. Why ya ha 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 and Naruto ha ha help us oh out ha ha choked out Sasame as she too used Naruto as a base with the black-haired genin now calming down a bit. Lifting his head up slightly, Naruto gave a small grin towards the group as he opened his mouth. Yandame-sama, Hokage-sama, what's the Hokage doing here? That bastard! IWA will kill you! What's up with the black hair, Hokage-sama? Shut up! Screamed Naruto with irritation as his eye began to twitch from the repetitive word Hokage or Yandame. Pointing towards the original genin who had asked why he and his group were laughing, Naruto gave a small narrowed glare. I said a funny joke to help ourselves relax. That was why. Now if you excuse me, I will be with my team, replied Naruto before moving both Satsuki and Sasame towards a corner before falling silent. It wasn't long before the exam door slammed itself wide open. Woohoo! Teammate is here to kick ass and take you, shouted a voice, causing Naruto to mentally kill himself as he turned his attention towards one of the people he hoped to avoid, Kiba. Naruto simply blinked at Kiba before pointing towards himself. Me? Asked Naruto with a raised brow, already knowing that with Kiba here he would now have a target planted onto his back. Kiba grit his teeth as he walked up towards Naruto, his squad following slightly behind as he went right up to Naruto's face. Naruto, seeing this however, moved his head back slightly. Sorry doggy breath, I don't swing that way, spoke Naruto with a blank look, causing the majority of the room to fall silent. Kiba didn't seem to understand what Naruto had intended with his choice of wordings. As such, when he moved forwards once more, Naruto simply moved his head back once more. And like that, the whole room erupted with laughter as they saw Kiba repeatedly attempt to threaten Naruto. You! Came a voice from within the room. Turning his attention slightly, Naruto came upon the sight of a sandy blonde-haired girl before she narrowed her eyes at him. Naruto, now internally crying, simply pointed towards himself with a slight tilt of his head. Me? Asked Naruto, causing the black-haired teen to grin slightly as he saw the woman's face turn bright red with anger. However, due to Naruto now attempting to find out who to converse with, he hadn't noticed both Satsuki and Sasame pouting slightly behind him. He's forgotten us, hasn't he? Asked Sasame towards Satsuki, who simply nodded her head with a larger pout. Kiba, be quiet. I apologize for Kiba's actions, Naruto-san. Spoke Hinata as she moved in front of Kiba and bowed slightly, only to feel Naruto's hand land on the top of her head a bit before giving her a small grin. Don't worry about it, Hinata, and don't worry about bowing and all the formalities, okay? I'm fine with just Naruto. Also don't worry about dog breath, he didn't do all that much, replied Naruto as he removed his hand from Hinata's head before turning around slightly, missing the very tiny hint of red that appeared on her cheeks. Why yes, mumbled Hinata slightly in a shyish tone, causing Kiba to widen his eyes at how soft a voice Hinata had. Give me the card information about NarutoNega. Spoke a voice towards the center of the room, drawing the attention of all genin participants as they looked towards what appeared to be a silver-haired teen standing in front of a large group of other genin. Of course there wasn't a second later did a shout of what run through the room as two girls and their third teammate run in with shock and disbelief on their faces. When the two speeding girl appeared, Naruto couldn't help but let out a small whistle as he caught sight of the two Jinchurikis of Konoha, Mito Uzumaki Namikaze and Kasumi Uzumaki Namikaze. The daughters of Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze. The two were obviously twins as they were the same age, but identical twins they were not. Mito stood at a good 5 feet 0 inches with long shiny red hair that reached just past her shoulder blades with two chin-length bands cascading besides her face with a pair of violet-colored eyes, while Kasumi stood at a height similar to his own, about 5 feet 1 inch with long blonde hair that reached past, like her sister's, shoulder blades with random points within the hair poking out from its smooth flowing nature. Kasumi also had, like her sister, two bangs that framed the sides of her face, however, unlike Mito, reached to the top of her collarbones with a small bit of hair swept from the left side of her forehead to the right, concealing a small portion of both her forehead and left eye, which was a shining blue color. However, another similarity between the two were their three whisker-like line marks that were on each cheek, giving them a fox-like look as the two stared towards the silver-haired genin with a narrowed look. Oh, they were also simply wearing something he had seen the fourth Hokage, back in his genin days, which was a basic long-sleeve jacket, colored with their respective hair colors, that being red for Mito and yellow for Kasumi, along with long pants that were tied at the ankle with white tape before a standard pair of black shinobi sandals. Overall, while they didn't look like neon orange flashing signs, they weren't very ninja-like either, and from their choice of clothing Naruto suspected the two to be tomboys. However, a laugh soon broke Naruto out from his concentration of the two Kage daughters before silver-haired Nin spoke. Sorry Tamari-san, there isn't anyone by the name of NarutoNega, however, there is a Naruto within the list. Spoke the genin in a clear tone before pulling out a small deck before reading the contents of the card. Name Naruto. Affiliation Konoha. Rank Genin. Ninjutsu 7 out of 10. Genjutsu 5 out of 10. Taijutsu 8 out of 10. Ninjutsu and Taijutsu Specialist. Mission completion D64C 21B 16A0S1. Special traits exhibited. Natural healing factor / regeneration factor, said to have regrown arm after having it amputated after a few weeks. However, during the process Naruto had been drugged beforehand. Finished Kabuto, his interest peaked as he turned his attention towards a blank-faced Naruto, who had a small bead of sweat drip from his brow at the intense gazes he was getting from everyone. However, before anyone could say anything, a sudden gust of wind caught everyone's attention as a man suddenly appeared with his eyes closed. It wasn't a second later did the man open his eyes, did time seem to stop itself. My name is Itachi Uchiha, protector of the first exam, take your seat. What if Naruto become fire daimyo after chunin exams? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.